Are you doing this from your phone or the computer?
This is from my computer, and we're live right now, so I think people can hear you, actually.
All right, later.
All right. All right, I'll see you in a bit. All right, everybody. Have a good show tonight. And let me see if I can figure out this banner. I have no idea why I can't remember any of this stuff. It's like mind-blowing that I can't remember how to... Oh, wait a minute. I think I got it. It's on media assets. There it is. Oh, yeah, I knew I'd figure it out. Anyway, welcome, everybody. Dave's going to be joining us soon, and we got William Philipek. And so this is going to be a recap of 2024. So first things first, give a shout out to our sponsor. And regardless of the sponsor, awesome dude, Rami, runs the Reptile Super Shows. Amazing expo. Have to see it. If you haven't been to one, or if you've been to one, they're definitely one of those communal reptile expos that is insanely fun to attend. Great for networking, great for hanging out. A lot of really cool animals at the Reptile Super Show. Really nice layout, big open show. Easy to get around, even though there's like 20K plus people that are going through those doors over the weekend. Actually, I think it might be closer to 30. But again, it's a must-see show. It's in the top 3 best shows. It's one of my favorite shows to go to. Can't wait. January 11th and 12th coming up. And then big shout out to US ARC, fighting for our rights to own the animals that we love to keep. If you don't support US ARC, please do. We're in US ARC shirt right now. You can support them by buying their memorabilia, donating, or just sharing and liking their content. They're on Instagram. They're on Facebook. You'll see them at a lot of shows. They have wristbands. They have hoodies, shirts, all kinds of stuff. Please support them. They make it so we were able to own all the reptiles and amphibians and everything we care about. So without further ado, let's get Dave on here. There he is. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, buddy.
Where you at currently? Russia?
Living room of my house. Living room of my house.
Okay.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah. This is a Jewish hat, by the way. This isn't a Russian hat.
Oh, it's not? So the Russians, when they're wearing that, is, I guess it's just for cold weather. So I guess it doesn't have to. Is it really a Jewish hat?
Well, when I lived in Buffalo, I lived near Hurdle Avenue, which was the Jewish district of town. Every once in a while, you saw like the Jews with those big hockey puck looking helmets, or those hockey puck looking fur things.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So when I found this at a thrift store, I just had to assume it was something Jewish.
Are you sure it's a Jewish hat? Am I even allowed to say Jewish hat? Are you allowed to say that?
I don't know. I can say whatever I want. I got Jewish tattooed across my body.
Okay.
Let me see what the inside says. Ooh, I don't know, man. This is another language. I can't read that. I think it says CC.
Russian.
Yeah, it says CCP. CCCP. I don't know.
All right. So we got New Year's coming up. You're not going to the Pomona Super Show, are you?
Man, I probably won't be unless something happens the week of. Well,
somebody
you
has
never
to
really
fly Dave out. Somebody donate some money.
Yeah, you were supposed to motivate me to do this, and we never talked. Well, I don't know. You help my motivation when you tell me to do things.
Well, you got about like 2 weeks still, so technically you got plenty of time.
Yeah. I guess I'll have to make a phone call.
Make some phone calls. I mean, I will say I do like the Pomona Super Show. The vibe there is really good. You know, because there's certain shows I go to, and I'm not always looking the most forward to them. I'm kind of like, eh. And I don't really want to say which shows those are because I don't want to offend anybody, but they're actually the more closer shows. I feel like when I'm traveling and I'm meeting more people and I'm going to these larger events and it's active and busy, it's more stimulating and it's a lot of, positivity. Even for somebody like me that's kind of introverted, I still really like to go out there and meet people. I mean, it's a very important aspect of, I think, of just normal human interaction and, desire.
No, here's the thing. I love the Pomona show, and anytime I have a chance to go out there, I'm lucky to be there. Like you said, the animals, the people. I mean, it's a West Coast show, and that's like one of the only West Coast shows I've ever walked. Man, life gets crazy. I actually told Chad Holker about this, and he took time off of work to go to Pomona with me, and then I never called him about that either. So maybe. I know. He says July.
Chad still has the day off, those days off though, so maybe you could still come out.
Yeah, man, lots got to happen in 2 weeks to make that happen. I could talk to him after the podcast a little bit, but I mean, 2 weeks, right? Or is it 3 weeks away?
2
3
weeks
weeks.
because it's January. Yeah, well, no, because we got like 3 days left in the year, and then it's like 11 days after, so it's like 2 weeks, exactly like 14 days.
I'll talk to him, but I think we're going to go to the July one for sure. You know, we could do a little bit of herping. You know, the winter show, it's so cold.
Well, Pomona's nice, and then also a lot of times we, hang out at Joe's place, Tortuga Brewing, company.
Which I'd love to do, by the way. I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah, if you did, yeah, dude, if you come out, you'll, and he's always got like 80 different types of beers for you to try, and he'll even give you here's a stout, Jeff, and he's like, try this. And I'll tell you what, I like his stouts a lot, which is funny because I'm not a beer guy, you know that. Like some people will see me like drink a beer, so they automatically assume like I'm an Elkie. And the thing is, like, me, like, I'm pretty straight. Like, I'm a pretty dry person. I don't drink alcohol much. But when I go out to Joe's, he has like a few that I do really like. And I think I'm a pretty interesting person to experiment on because he's giving beer to somebody that does not like beer. And some of them I definitely like. There's definitely somewhere I'm like, this is a little too beery for me, though.
I posted up at his table on the Sunday of the last Pomona show, and I think I tried one of every one of his beers, and I got a hot dog in me. So I think I spent at least 2 hours by his table.
I like that story a lot because Joe was telling me the whole time how you were trying to ask him if he was a friend that I was staying with and hanging out with, but without trying to be blunt and like straight. He goes, I could tell he was trying to ask to see if he didn't like he was telling me, he goes, it seemed like Dave didn't want to impose and be like, oh, are you the guy that's Jeff's friend? Like, you're kind of like, you feel like you should already know somebody. And so then you were trying to get hints, and Joe knew you were doing that, and he was purposely evading all of your questions.
Which is fair. And I don't blame him. But no, it was nice to hide over by his table. It was a cool little experience. I enjoyed talking to him. I would probably do the same thing if I went to this show. Like I said, let's see how the next 2 weeks of life go. MJ made the offer like a month and a half ago, but I'm sure things have changed.
Well, I don't think so. Ask him. All right, we got William in. Let's add William.
Yeah, pop William in here.
William to the stage. Oh, yeah, there we go.
What's up, guys?
Perfect. How's it going, William?
Pretty good. You got yourselves?
Good. First things off, I want to bring this up because I think you still have them. It's been a while. I remember we met years ago at Tinley. Doesn't seem that long ago, but I think it's been like 4 or 5 years somehow.
It's been a minute.
But you have African rock pythons, right?
Yep.
All right. So I proposed this one last time, and I've been bringing it up. And actually, I put it in my Discord.
Oh, no.
I said I offered a $3,000 bounty. I'll do $3,000 donating to Children's Hospital if somebody breeds an African rock to a blood python and makes some viable hybrids.
So here's the deal. If I did that, you get the whole clutch, and you have to keep them.
My God. I'd keep one. I have to keep them all.
I'm just kidding. That'd be horrible. I don't even know if you could house all of those.
I don't know. I wonder. Right. I'd imagine it would be quite a large snake, especially if you fed them a lot. And I think they'd be.
I think personality-wise, it would be very similar to like Sri Lankans and Indians, because I've noticed Indians and Sri Lankans act very similar to a very pissed-off blood python. That like sea strike that a blood python will do. You know what I'm talking about? How it'll like curve its body into the sea and then lunge itself forward. Where
right, yeah, like it throws its whole body weight with it.
Yeah, they'll do the same thing, but you got a whole lot more snake. So I think it'll be pretty similar to those if you hybridized. If I had a guess, I don't know. Either way, it sounds like a horrible animal.
Yeah, I think it'd be funny as hell looking. I mean, because African rocks, when they get bigger, they get kind of heavy bodied. And so I'm like, okay, so it'd be a heavy bodied snake. It might get like 10, 11 foot, 12 foot. And it's not going to have the best disposition for sure. That's what I'd assume too, like you're saying. It's interesting that you say it'd be like a Sri Lankan. I don't know much about those at all. But the pattern and color, I think, would be pretty cool. Like a bronzy, brown, mosaic, real crazy pattern animal.
Well, the only blood python male I have is a golden eye, T positive. So it'd be
even better.
A bunch of morph stuff in it. Yeah, right. Oh, God. That'd be terrifying to think about. Yeah, any of those big snake hybrids just sound horrible. as far as dealing with them and everything. Like there's that guy in France who does a lot of the berms and rock python hybrids. And,
Okay.
I mean, they're phenomenal looking animals. I mean, the color, I don't know if you guys ever seen those hybrids before, but the colors are like fluorescent yellow or neon yellow, some of them, and some of them almost have like a green look to them. I mean, they're pretty.
And which one are you talking about, the bat eater stuff?
No, they call them cat eaters, the rock and berm hybrids.
Yeah, but
bat eaters are retic and berms.
Yeah, I know that, but you're talking about, because I remember the ones that had that greenish tone to them. I thought that was like, was that African rock and a hypo berm?
Yeah. It was a morph berm of some sort. I don't know what the morph was, but yeah, it was some sort of morph. It was It didn't even look real. Yeah, but some of the bat eaters can have green looks too, almost like a green anaconda look, depending on the individual.
Interesting. Do those reproduce?
Which ones?
Any of the hybrids?
Well, it seems like the Asian, African stuff can all interbreed with each other. Retics are kind of the oddball. They're more closely related to the Australian stuff, but they made it past the Wall line. They're one of the few Indo-Australian stuff, so they have trouble. Their hybrids have trouble breeding to the other Asian, like the rocks, the Indians, and all them. But if you did a rock and Indian or rock and blood and all those ball pythons and stuff, they'd all can interbreed with each other fine. Same thing with a lot of the Australian stuff. Most of them. I don't know if all of them can.
Junior, you probably remember this, but like the time of hybrids, is that behind us? I know there's a Facebook page and we're watching all these locks, but like, I remember back in the 90s and 2000s, you'd see like the Amazon to the emerald, the Chihuahua to the crested gecko, all the stuff going on in the Colubrid community. Like you said, the cat eater, the bat eater, the wall, which was the Wuma ball python. I think there was a retic ball python I remember back then on Nerd Site. I don't see any of that shit anymore.
Oh shit, I saw a fucking ball python, green python hybrid. That's the most wild. I would have never assumed. I don't know why, but I can't believe someone bred those two together. That was one of the wildest hybrids I've ever seen.
You know what would be a really wild hybrid? Would be like a retic to like a children's, if that'd be even possible.
Someone tried. Dave's sent me a picture. That's an old picture, by the way. The blood python and children python.
Yeah,
it was just courting.
One.
They were just courting, but as far as I know, there was nothing that came from it. Yeah, no, that'd be interesting. You got to do, instead of a children's python, you got to do a pygmy python, so the smallest of the anteregia.
And
then you got to see if it suffers from little man syndrome. Well, they already suffer from little man syndrome, so I don't know if it could get much worse if you add a little more size to them. They like to try to eat you, so they might have a better chance of eating you, or at least most of you, or some of you. But
fat tail to leopard gecko a thing?
Oh, they've tried that many times, dude. Anybody that said they had viable babies, because there is one, talk of it, but I think it's just a different gecko species that somebody had seen, because there was this talk that people have made it before. But, so many people have tried leopard and African fat tail geckos, and even when you get locks, the females will lay eggs, and they're just always dummy eggs. They're either slugs or they're eggs that look good, and there's no embryo or nothing in them. And, tons of people have tried. Hybrids, some people, actually, at the last show I was at, or big show, Phoenix, somebody had a crested Chihuahua hybrid, and it sold for decent money, too, like $400 or $500. And so, obviously, the funny thing I see about the hybrid hate that I never really understand that much is, if you don't like it, don't partake. But nobody's trying to pass off any of these hybrids as pure anything. You're not accidentally getting like a cart ball or anything like that. All right, William, you have a story. What's the story?
I will disagree with this. I sent this link to Dave, and it was a guy it was a local page to me. He was asking, what kind of morph ball? Is this a chocolate ball python morph? And when you saw the picture, you go, are you fucking serious? It was a wall.
Really?
It looked like a straight wall. It didn't look like it was a morph of any kind other than just a hybrid. And I'm just like, that's a hybrid. and he had no idea. And that's like one of the most extreme hybrids you can get. Well, maybe outside of like a ball python, but it was like it's unfortunate, but they almost always get misrepresented. And I actually don't really care, because if you can't give me much of the way of a lineage of a species, I probably won't buy it from you anyways. So it's not really a big deal to me. I just think it gets to be, I almost hate the stigma that comes with it, because then you kind of get dubbed as an asshole because you don't want to buy stuff because they don't know all the history of it, or you seem snobby or something. But I don't mind hybrids. Like Nick gets real. I mean, I'm sure you guys heard him when he was on. He gets real bad about it. But I don't generally mind. It's just not my cup of tea. I try to stay away from it. It just, I've just seen it go awry so badly that, I mean, you see it in carpet pythons are bad. I mean, look at leopard geckos. Leopard geckos are hybrids. All the leopard geckos we have are hybrids.
They are. Well, that's the funny thing is, like, I that's what I meant to say when I rephrased it, because like nobody's really trying to pass off these hybrids as like pure lineage anything with the pythons. But when it comes to like geckos, and then like colubrids, there's definitely a handful of corn snake morphs that are, the results of hybrids that are kind of accepted as just like a corn snake when it really isn't. And it's kind of funny. And most of these corn snake people that accept these corn snake hybrids as a pure corn snake are anti-hybrid. But I mean, if you look at it from an optimistic point of view, you'd be like, well, the more it gets bred back into corns, eventually it is going to be like 99.9% corn. There's going to be barely any DNA from that other species, whether it's a king snake or something else left. So, but since I work with hognose, I don't really have anything to worry about because nobody's hybridizing hognose. I mean, somebody tried it recently. Somebody tried a plains to an eastern, and the eggs weren't viable. I'd say a southern and a plains might be possible, though. Southern and plains look a lot more similar, and they're actually supposed to be more closely related. And it would be a bit of a tragedy, but at the same time, anybody that does it, you're going to know right away that that's like a southern plains. But the problem is if somebody takes that southern plains hybrid, if it is able to even be made, and they breed it back to a plains, and they try saying, hey, this is just some wacky-looking new plains lineage, here it's a friggin' hybrid.
Right.
Yeah. I will say, jumping back to colubrids, when you start getting like some of those weird mixtures of crossing them, the variability in the babies, where some of the babies will have the influence of one of them, and sometimes it's only half the body has the influence. I've always liked the hybrids in the colubrid community.
I think they're interesting. I think the hybrids with the pythons, because I mentioned this to Nick, and I don't think he really disagreed with it. I don't think he liked it. But I'm like, actually, these hybrids offer insight into how closely related the animals actually are. Because some of these hybrids, he says, are like sterile. They're like mules. They can't reproduce. And then some of their hybrids are able to still reproduce. So then that has some actually scientific value to show you how closely related certain pythons are. So I don't see it as completely valueless.
I don't know. Is it really useful anymore with a molecular where we could test to see a lot of the lineage of these animals to see how genetically how closely related a lot of them are with a phylogenetic tree to see, that's how the Australian pythons in the Indo-African stuff got split up is, molecular testing to see how closely related those species are. I mean, shit, I think African and Australian pythons are, what did Nick say? Like 30 million years separated from each other. Just the sheer fact you can hybridize those animals still is astonishing.
That's what I mean. Because the thing is, you could look at their phylogenetic tree. You could look at that phylogenetic tree, and most people would probably assume until it's probably done. I don't know if they would be able to like sequence the DNA of one and say, hey, based off this, are we able to breed these two or not? So I think it definitely offers some information. That's is it like ultra useful? No, but I think it's scientifically interesting if you're into that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it can help with mutations. Like, how similar are some of the mutations? Like, like piebald. Will piebald work the same as it does with the African Indonesian stuff as it does with the Australian pythons? Because I think we saw what happened when CRISPR took the piebald and put it into something like the annul, and how it was. What was it? Was it just black
Well,
or gray or something?
it was a brown anole that they put the albino gene into
Oh,
it,
was it
but I
albino?
had
Okay.
yeah, they made an albino brown anole in Georgia, but what I had heard is all the babies they produced ended up dying.
Okay.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, so that was Warren Booth was talking about that. He had mentioned that the ones that they were able to produce died. And here's the thing, the albino gene is always such a weak gene. They probably should have started with something a little stronger.
Right. Right.
You would be
Well, I mean,
interesting
just
to see. Oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say like certain genes. They said like if you took like a piebald, let's say from a piebald python, and with CRISPR, technology, you transferred that mutant allele into something like an anole. They said yeah, because like obviously since their pattern and pigmentation is different, it might look like a weird pied. It could be like white splotching that's more to the sides, and then obviously kind of that brown pigment. I'd imagine though, but that they're saying that it's hard to predict. But my probably I'd say lean more towards the side of saying ignorant of
Right.
thought process on it, because I don't know anything about transferring mutant allele DNA from one species into another and how that has an effect on its pigment, because obviously those animals' pigment cells are very different from a completely different species. Obviously, a ball python to like another python, I think would be pretty similar. Which you're saying interesting, like hey, if you took like a pied and you made a hybrid, how much different would it look? But since the pythons are kind of closely related, go ahead.
Right. Well, look at something like the piebald ball python, the Burmese python, and the blood python. They all have a very similar look.
They do.
I mean, compared to the species itself, like it has a very traditional look. But then when you look at something like the piebald retic, it's pretty drastic compared. Like most piebalds and the ball pythons, bloods, and the berms typically don't have a lot of. It's rare to have white heads compared to like the retics, where I've seen just as many white-headed pied retics as I do normal pie, what we usually see. And then just pattern and color-wise is very different from a piebald retic compared to the Indonesian African pied stuff, at least from what I've seen. And I can't remember, was it a Stimsoni that allegedly had a piebald, I think, but I can't remember what it looks like. I'm ashamed to say it as a python guy. I thought one of the Antaresia had a piebald, but I can't. I guess it's one of those, since I can't have it, I try not to look too much into it.
Sure.
Because, it's like salt in the wound, and it's like, right.
Yeah, there's a lot of things around you'll never have in life, but you can stare at them still.
No, it just makes me cry a little bit. I don't need to be depressed.
No, that's fair. So what do you think would happen if you put a pied berm to a pied ball python? Are you making double head for pied?
That's an interesting one.
You'd make pieds, I would think. I almost willing to guarantee you'd make pieds.
Yeah.
But is the pied trait in the one species the same as in the other?
I believe so, because if I'm not mistaken, that's how Ben and them are looking for piebald and stuff like retics, berms, and eventually the blood pythons. It's giving them a general idea of where to locate it. Not exactly where it is exactly, but at least a general idea of where to look, from my understanding.
Well, Junior, you're pretty good at that kind of stuff.
Well, the thing is, like William is saying, like if you look at the blood, and that's the funny thing, because that's what I wanted to talk about too. We're talking about these hybrid stuff. Yeah, like the pied berm, pied blood, and pied ball python have like really strong similarities. And most likely there's not a bunch of different alleles where there would be a mutant that would cause this kind of reaction. So they actually, like you're saying, with the genetic testing, they should be able to find out if it's basically allelic, maybe not 100% certainty, but based on DNA sequencing to see where the location is. Because most likely they'll probably see, if it looks like it's pretty much in the same spot, it most probably likely definitely is. And then it would be allelic. Now, the interesting one, like William's saying, the pied retic, you're not seeing white-headed pied ball pythons anything unless it has another gene in it. If it's just a piebald ball python with no other genes, I don't think there's ever been a pied ball python with a white head unless you have another gene involved. Or am I wrong there, Dave?
Well, no, you're right, unless there's another gene involved. But, here's the thing in retics, and, what we were talking about with Nick Mutton is, what if there's a leucistic trait in some of these retics, and that's why you're getting a whiter snake? There could be an underlining gene in
No, I
them,
don't
but I
like
do
that
remember.
one. No, I don't agree with that one
No,
at all.
you don't think so?
No.
You don't think we sent else back in there?
No, because
Right.
they're so splotching on the body. No.
Okay, fair. Okay, so I remember the early retics. They were pretty much, I think the first ones all had a white head. There were some concerns early in that project that it would always be a shitty looking pied. And then all of a sudden they started having normal pied pattern. But you're right, it is fairly reduced or high white compared to other species.
Yeah, and that might even be the same one. It might just be different just because retics DNA is that different. And so it's interacting. Because retics, you do get those kind of traditional looking ones. Kind of like but then you get these white-headed ones. The retic pies, I mean, they're some of the coolest looking pied snakes there are. I really look forward to the pied blood combos when they put that into albino and stuff. But isn't the pied, I mean, obviously they're going to hybridize it, but isn't it a Borneo?
It's blood python. It's a Bronger's my, not Bronger's my, no, Bronger's my, the blood python, Sumatran blood. So yeah, that's where it originated. I allegedly heard it could have been from Borneo, but I don't know how many people import stuff from Borneo as far as Borneo short tails and stuff. Sure, I know they do, but I don't. As far as I know, it's pretty rare compared to the Sumatran short tails and the blood pythons, anyways, for the skin farm, skin trade, and all that.
I'm looking up a picture of it.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I remember that. I'm trying to find.
It could be just because it's pied, but man, like I don't know anything about it. But it kind of looks Borneo-ish to me, just because I mean that one's got some red, but normally they don't have much pigment on them, like as far as like reddish pigment. But that could just be because of the pied gene.
Well, you're looking at a one animal that's closer to a wild type animal, though, and that.
You know what? You're right. You're right.
A lot of bloods have been selectively bred to be. I mean, like fucking.
Of course, right.
Red almost. So I mean, I'm assuming that's what it is. Because I mean, I'm sure once they even just line breeding that pied, I'm sure they'll get some phenomenal looking, fire truck red bloods at some point.
That'd be beautiful. Yeah, if they make some red and like bright dark red and white pied, that'd be like one of the most amazing looking pied snakes.
Honestly though, I'm probably more excited for the wrought iron stuff. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because of the funky look they have, but I really dig the wrought iron stuff. I like the pied bloods too, but some of the wrought irons that just
those were weird.
My fancy.
I seen one at Daytona because Dave asked, "What was your coolest thing you seen at Daytona?" I was like, "Maybe that wrought iron." And Dave said, "I was about to say the same thing." I was like, "Man, that's a really weird looking blood python."
Yeah, over on Tim Bailey's table.
He made a wrought iron Goldeneye, right? Isn't that what he made? I'm pretty sure that's what I remember seeing.
I think wrought iron Goldeneye matrices have been made so far. Okay. I know that 3 combo has been made. Is it there's 2 big guys. Who's the other big pied guy? It's not a Nesto, or who's the blood guy? William, that's a question for you. Who's big in the pied and the wrought iron project?
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name. He got into it, I think, shortly after Tim. I think I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name though. I literally just saw a picture of some of his stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Elijah just got into some of the wrought iron stuff.
Well, Elijah ended up picking up that one that we all saw at Daytona. It was funny because I knew he loved that project, so I sent him and Matt Minatola the picture because I'm in a little group chat with them. And the next day, Tim came over to me at the show, and he's all like, "Hey, where did you post that blood python? It's sold." And I was like, "I didn't post it. I sent it to one person I knew wanted it." So I was happy that they made that work, but he ended up, he picked up a male and a female, and I want to say he picked up a Goldeneye. I think he picked up a Goldeneye wrought iron and then a wrought iron female.
Okay.
All right, he's into pied. Looks nothing like a Borneo. The very original one I seen was just like brown and white. And I forget all the time. I own short tails, but I kind of call them all bloods because there's people that'll be like, they're like, what are you talking about? There's no blood pythons in Borneo. Yeah, they're short tails. I get it.
No, you're old.
That's the first one I seen. You're telling me that doesn't look like a Borneo? It's like brown.
I don't know. I see what you mean, and I think I questioned when I saw that picture too, but I always thought it was a blood.
It is. It's a mainland blood. That's what William's saying, and it's like it makes sense seeing the size of it and everything, and then looking at other pictures. I mean, and then obviously, yeah, distorting it to pied and these being more like wild type ones. I'm like, yeah, I see it. You know, I definitely see it, especially like this one. That looks like, especially with that dark head and that orange body, that looks like a blood to me, not a short tail. So
I'm gonna have this podcast.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So I was talking to MJ. He said I got to do a blood python podcast. So I was gonna get with Matt and Elijah to do something. But I've always wanted to talk about how certain genes in blood pythons would react to it. And honestly, after talking to Nick Button in those two podcasts, really changed the way I look at a lot of things now on how genes react. And where you have the is it the Druid or Druid? You have the Druid project that also makes a white snake. You have the Matrix project that makes a white snake, and I think there's one other way to make a white snake in bloods right now. I wonder if all those genes when put into pied are just going to make a solid white snake, and you're going to not get any of that pattern showing through like you get with other genes in ball pythons.
What was it? What was the? You said the. I don't. They're not really pure white though. None of
well, even if they're not.
Stuff.
Well, they're not necessarily.
Like the
well, the ivory, the Druid, like I said, makes a white snake. Now, I understand it started getting pattern over time, but again, something that can make a white snake put into a pie gene should make a higher expression of white. It should just give you a solid colored animal.
You see it in ball pythons, the ivory ball python or ivory.
Well, you can't make a lesser pied is the point though. So I guess if we're calling the ivory and the
okay, that's what I know what you're talking about. You're talking about peewee eyes and stuff. Well, you see it with the labyrinth. You see it with the labyrinth, not labyrinth. Is it hypo or the caramel? The caramel, it's the Lucy Berm and pied. It does the same thing, making a white snake with little pin eyes, red pin eyes, just like the lesser pieds.
The hypo makes the pearl. Pieds. Yeah, super hypos do the pearl and the berms.
Okay, so it's the super hypo pieds that make the white snake with the little red beady eyes. Just it's the same thing as the lesser.
I've seen those at Pete Call's place. They were really weird looking. Yeah, they had the really tiny eyes.
Yeah, does the same thing with the berms too.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I saw that I think it was called the Cookies and Cream is what Ralph Davis was calling the lesser pied originally. I got to see it at his place when he first made it, but the scales were deformed a little on top of the head, and the eyes were small and beady.
Yeah, it is what it is. I don't know why. I don't know if people are going to be really thirsting to get after a white snake like that for bloods, especially with all the new colors and pattern mutations there are.
No, but that's my point. What combination should they not put into pied if inevitably they're just going to get a white snake is my point. Should they keep Matrix away from it? Should they keep the Druid away from it if it's just going to make a white snake in the end?
What is the Druid? Is it a blue eye or a fire type leucistic?
It's a blue.
The Super Druid, it kind of looks like the graphite ivories. I mean, what's the graphite ivory exactly, though?
Well, the graphite ivory was the orange belly. Orange belly made the graphite ivories.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is like a higher expression ivory, essentially. I mean, kind of like that. I mean, you got a lot of like, reduced melanin pigment that's kind of like coming through.
Yeah.
They're pretty nice looking. They're really
seems like the only thing. Seems like the only thing that causes those eye issues, though, are the blue eye stuff. At least from what it seems like.
And what do you mean by eye issues? Size or?
No, yeah, just pin eyes or beady eyes or something. Shrunken eyes.
Do you think that there will be any genes in bloods when crossed with the wrought iron that'll make the eye issue worse?
Well, it'd probably make it worse before it makes it better because they're all genetic defects. So my assumption would be chances are it'll make it worse over making it better.
Yeah, but from what Tim Bailey was talking about the eye thing with that, the scale formation thing, very different. I don't know if I know of any Junior, I don't know. I need you to pay attention to this. You here, buddy?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm just looking at pictures of pied berms.
No,
Or, sorry,
this is
pied
this is
bloods.
this is kind of directed towards you. You might remember this, but so with the wrought iron, the scale is a little big on some of it. It covers a little bit of the eye.
Sure.
And Tim Bailey had a vet buddy over, and they were going to try to work on that scale, maybe trim a little off. And he said that the scale was actually attached to the eyeball.
I mean, I don't know. See, like, I'm not the one that's like, was looking at these, but that'd be really weird. I think it's probably just really tightly pressed against it because the eye, with the socket and the snake, I mean, the scale should come up to it. But if there's scales that are like forming over, the edge of the eye and they're really tight against it, I don't know, maybe that might actually change part of the ocular system, where the eye attaches to the scale. So maybe some of those scales are attached and there's no way. I mean, what were they talking about? Possibly cropping them? Because that's insane.
Well, not necessarily. So he had a vet come over that does his normal routine. If there's anything in his house that needs anything, he does it with his buddy. So long story short, they were kind of curious if it could be like if the scale could just be removed. And where that is a crazy thought, look at all the things they do in dog breeding. Tails,
yeah,
ears,
we don't want to go
things.
there, though. That's what I mean.
We don't. We don't. Yeah, and by the way, there was only a few animals that had this issue in that project. I don't think it's a widespread problem by any means. It's only been a few animals. So it doesn't sound like we're shitting on the project or anything.
Okay, so it's not all of them. I'm looking at some of these wrought irons here, and they're blurry photos, so I can't really see shit. But they're cool snakes. I've seen one in person.
We could do better.
This one, you can see its eye is a little different. It almost seems like it's being eclipsed a little bit. Like some of the scalation here, you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
I see you can side-by-side comparison.
That's pretty minor, though. I mean, you can see because that eye looks more oval because of the scale.
Well, it's funny. So when I saw that animal on Tim's table, I was like zooming in on the eyes because they just have such beautiful eyes. He thought that I knew about that possible thing, and that's why I thought I was staring at that animal's face so intently.
Okay.
Yeah, he literally. But
article.
Yeah, I didn't read the article. I can't read.
God damn it, Dave.
Yeah,
come on.
Not. If you don't tell me about the article doesn't exist.
What about the article that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, well, we don't have to. Well, it's not an article so much. Well, I watched that Dylan podcast again about the possible Tiger King spinoff in the industry with Crutchfield as the centerpiece. I've watched it like 2 or 3 times just because, I keep on going back, and really it seems like the only people in the community that are going to have to be afraid are import-exporters. It seems it's mostly about animal trafficking and things like that, zoos breaking the law by trafficking animals in. I'm sure there'll be a trickle-down effect in our hobby. I just don't know what that trickle-down effect is going to be yet.
Yeah,
William,
I understand the concern. I think I'm one of the people that are more laid back about it, as you already know, Dave. I'm not like ultra concerned. I don't think it's going to get the kind of attention that Tiger King got. I'm sure it'll get good amount of attention, and it'll get quite a bit. I mean, especially Netflix. It might get like an insane amount. I don't know how many millions of people are going to watch it. But
we don't know where you can watch it yet because the guy's other documentary was on HBO.
Oh, okay. I thought that was coming to Netflix though.
Well, I don't know if there's been a definite on what network it's going to be on because he did that Chimp Crazy and that was picked up by HBO. Tiger King was picked up by Netflix.
If it's picked up by HBO, who the fuck watches that?
I don't know. If I've got Williams HBO on my TV, maybe, but outside of that, no, I don't watch HBO.
Every Instagram reel or mention anybody talks about anything, they're all watching Netflix. From the looks of it, you would think that nobody even watches these other, networks based on how many fucking people watch Netflix.
True. So it was like 7 or 8 years ago. I was watching a reptile-related documentary on Netflix where they were kind of going around shows, and Adam Cheslow was one of the guys they were talking to.
All right, Lisa said they pushed it out in emergency ESA on Blue Tree monitors the day after Christmas. I think this is in regards to animals being trafficked. I'm guessing.
Okay.
because I'd
Really?
imagine the original blue tree monitors may not have been imported legally. I'm not sure though. I don't know much about varinids.
Okay.
Where's a link or something to that? We got to get a link for that.
Yeah, hey Lisa, can you show us a link? Because she's like it's already starting. Now the animal activists, they're the ones that are going to want to jump on this stuff, and obviously those are the people that are going to pounce. Anybody that's watching this for pure entertainment are going to watch it and just like talk about it a bit, and then they're going to move on. You know, obviously it's good fodder for the anti-pet people because they're like, well, look at this negative effect or pre-existing. Obviously, most of the smuggling stuff is all gone. So like they're going to be talking about Crutchfield and stuff, and I don't know much about it. I know there was that book, Lizard King, that was published. I think that's like a 20-year-old book talking about Ed Selbucky, him and a few other people that were involved in that smuggling. But most of that stuff's gone. If I talk to any of these like fish and wildlife officers about this stuff, like I mean it's kind of irritating for me because like we're going through your box or whatever. They're like, you need to put more rubber bands on this stuff or some dumb shit. I'm like, man, I at the time I was really sick. I'm like, can you just give me a friggin' break? The animals are packed well. And I'm like, nobody's even smuggling anything or doing anything. Actually, most of the black market animals have no value. Who the hell wants that anyway? Just like a few people.
Well, I think Dave could speak on this. I think most of the Australian smuggling is either Japan or Europe, because we always make that joke about the European hole that that seem to just drop Australian animals through and end up in Europe somehow, magically.
Yeah.
Very rarely do we get animals smuggled from.
No, you're
Australia
right. It's always
here.
They're going to mostly Asian countries. That actually happens a lot. Australia to some to Japan. Most of it's going to Hong Kong and China. China's also, they had the issues with the rhinoceros horn. Most of the issues with the smuggling is all over there. It's kind of like when they put that ban on importation to exportation of knobtails in the United States to help smuggling.
They did it with the U.S. They did it with almost all Australian animals.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah.
Except for like the common ones.
Oh no, they did it. As far as I know, they did it with all of them. As far as I know, the only
not bearded dragons. They didn't do bearded dragons,
really?
And there's a few others. And I think pythons, like Australian python, should be fine because you can still get CITES to export. Can't you?
It's fish and wild. This happened recently, so I think it might be bearded dragons too. Because recently, last couple of years, Australia got tired of the U.S. making money essentially on their animals, so they had Fish and Wildlife in the U.S. crack down on imports and exports. That, as far as I know, that's for all pythons. I remember Nick used to readily get a lot of European stuff from Paul Harris, and that just stopped all of a sudden. But I will say, I did see that Casey Cannon got some Brettle hybrids from Don Patterson recently. Well, somewhat recently. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean,
bearded dragons. I mean, that'd have to be real recent because bearded dragons. I know people that are importing and exporting them like not that long ago, like months ago.
Okay,
yeah.
maybe bearded dragon, but I know pythons.
I think they're exempt. I think they're exempt because beardeds are like. Well, the thing is, like again, like every Australian, native like species, that are now in the pet trade at one time. Yeah, they're descendants of smuggled animals. Australia never allowed.
Right.
Export.
What's funny about this? So this was like 5 or 6 years ago. This all came up because this was a big deal in the skink community because you couldn't import or export skinks anymore. And that actually slowed down the market of animals coming from Canada because there was a few Canadian breeders for skinks that literally don't do it anymore because they couldn't even get their animals to the United States. They were actually having to ship their animals back to the Asian market. But I remember when this first came up, I heard, and again, it could have been a rumor, they were seizing boxes that had Rankin's dragons in them in customs in the United States trying to leave the country.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know how serious they were, but, William was right. Junior, you know this better than anybody. Is it Japan, China, or Hong Kong that doesn't have a fish and wildlife department?
Well, Japan, they have like, it's kind of like if you're like there's like police officers like in like Cleveland that, are part of a bomb squad, but that's not the only thing they do because there's like hardly any bombs in Cleveland. So they have, extra experience. Like I guess usually a lot of times they're like they're in the military or army, and they did bomb squad there, and so then that's part of their expertise. And that's kind of like how Japan is. Like that's regular police officers, but they have some that are a little more trained on wildlife laws, but they don't have an actual unit. Hong Kong has Hong Kong agriculture. They have agriculture. They might have something like a fish and wildlife. I'm not sure. I do know they have agriculture because I deal with them a lot doing shipments to them, because my broker doesn't know how not to make the most he doesn't know how to not make a mistake. So I'm always like, and it's so horrible because these fuckers at the Hong Kong agriculture, they know me. I already know they know me because like every 2 years, I'm sending them an urgent frantic message apologizing 1,000 times for something my broker did. And I'm like, we have an emergency. I need your help, please. And so I'm like freaking groveling to these people. So, but then with China, I'd have to ask one of my customers over there. I do know they have officer units that really look closely into. I mean, it's ridiculous. In China, if you have like Burmese pythons and blood pythons and short-tail pythons too, and you're not allowed to own CITES animals there, you'll go to jail for like 1 or 2 years just for owning Burmese and like short-tail and blood pythons, even boas. That's why there's not much of a ball python market there. That's why hognose snakes are so popular in China, because you can own a hognose all day. Ball pythons, though, are illegal, technically.
So no idea who the breeder was, but I remember years ago when you had the leucistic boa, the fire trait or the fire, the fire gene makes leucistics. Somebody in China had a fire VPIT positive before anybody even had the ingredients to make it. I think some of the early fire stuff that he bought ended up being Hetford T positive unknowingly. And I think he made either just a fire T positive, and he might have made a leucistic T positive also. But I remember seeing adult versions of those animals. I remember them being from China. There were people talking about getting them, and then it's China.
Yeah, to get anything out of China, yeah, it's like tough. Like you can't really get much stuff from China. If you do, you're getting it from Hong Kong. Now, Lisa, she has some information here. She's like, she wanted to get some ring pythons from Canada, and everyone was telling her it's impossible now because of Fish and Wildlife crackdown, which is insane because Canada is just like little United States. It's like, come on.
Yeah, well, and then they act like it can't get to the U.S. I mean, let's be honest. Look, the retic morphs that have come into the U.S.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, the newer ones, that is, and burn morphs.
We got Brandon Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, not that we're like advocating for smuggling. We're just saying that things happen.
Things happen. Yeah. I think there's like, because Brandon asked, what illegal animal would you want most? Of course, if it was legal and not via smuggling. My dream snake always has been Western hognose snakes. I got lucky. The species I'm obsessed with, you can readily and easily and accessibly own. Plains hognose are my favorite. If there was an illegal animal that made Fish and Wildlife and everybody settled down and shut the fuck up and stopped blowing things out of proportion, that would be my favorite animal. If there's one like that, if one existed that made them shut the fuck up about smuggling and exaggerating all this shit, that you can't buy a simple captive-born ring python from little United States and have it shipped a few miles south, it's ridiculous. They're being ridiculous. All right, Dave, what would be your... Oh, it's a horrible question the way it's phrased. What illegal animal would you want the most? Of course, if it was legal.
Well, it's going to be Australians because it's got to be. I mean, I've always been a shingles guy. Like, honestly, I've always wanted shingles, and they're too much here. Like $10,000, maybe if you're lucky. The Goldfield shinglebacks are my favorite, though. The Goldfield that look like war paint.
Oh my god!
I'm gonna look those up.
Yeah, they're fucking phenomenal. That's the one. Yeah. I'm not a big. What is the scientific name or the genus name for the are blue tongues and shingles under same genus or separate genuses? I'm assuming. God, I feel like right?
I believe, but now I'm not. That's the one thing I've always been really bad at. Yeah.
The complex. That's my favorite out of. Oh, well, come on, Dave, do better. Oh, there we go.
Try to do better.
Yeah,
try to do better.
Yeah, wait. These are
Jess
gorgeous. These are like the Mandarin duck of skinks.
Oh yeah.
These are really gorgeous. I've seen those pictures before. I didn't know that. I thought it was just like a locality.
The Goldfields. Well, it's arguably
Are they in the U.S.?
Yeah, there actually are some goldfields in the United States, and I do believe that there are actually people producing them in the United States now. So the one thing with shingles is back in the day, everybody said that what's that?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So back in the day, a lot of people said that shinglebacks bond for life when it comes to breeding. So yeah, isn't that amazing?
Photoshop. Look how red.
Yeah, it's very Photoshop. Very Photoshop.
Is this an outdoor pic?
Why is his hand so red? It looks
He's
like
got a Pixel 40
or something.
Well, it's because it's actually in this picture it doesn't look that bad, but I think over my camera it's making it look worse.
It kind of hurt my eyes. I'm glad I'm wearing something.
William, you have to share what illegal animal would you want most if it was legal?
Oh man, that's a hard one. Same with Dave. It'd probably be an Australian animal. Oh Jesus. Oh, maybe the Gamma Flinder Range carpet python or Owenpelli python would be pretty cool. One of those.
Those are very exotic because I've never even heard of those before in my life.
It's just, I don't know. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Honestly, if I want a little bit of everything just from Australia.
Yeah. Here's a question for you guys. What do you think will be the last thing standing you could work with after all the laws are said and done in 20, 30, 40 years? Like, do you think like the United States look? Oh, good.
I would move to Australia. If it became illegal to keep stuff here or they just cracked down on too many laws, I'm moving to Australia. That's where I would move to just to keep all the cool stuff, or at least the stuff I really enjoy.
Yeah. The only thing with the Australian market is it seems like there's only a couple people there that can actually do it as a full-time job.
I'll work on the railroads or whatever just to be able to work with some of that cool stuff out there. I'd probably work with shit that probably wouldn't make me any money anyways.
Just be a content creator. Just be a content creator.
Yeah, there we go. Like
we got a Goldfield skink and be oh wow, look at that one. Oh, look at the colors. And then it's like you've already seen that same skink for like the last 10 years. Just do that.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing about having friends in Australia is they'll send you pictures of like shinglebacks by their garbage cans. Very discouraging.
Same thing with carpet pythons. They'll have carpet pythons in their house and they're trying to shoo it away, or fucking scrub pythons and all this cool stuff. And you're just like, God, if only.
Man, remember, Dave, that one where that guy, like, I think it was a carpet or a tarp. I think it was a tarp. And there was like 3 carpet pythons underneath it on clutches of eggs. That was really fascinating. That was really cool to see.
Right.
What were those? Too. Interesting. What was? You remember that post, right, William? What were those? Were those coastals?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were. Yeah, that's usually where you see a lot of like the Queensland area and Brisbane area. Some of those places you'll see the most like what are they, like animal relocators and stuff. You know what I've seen a lot of, because I follow a few of the Australian relocators, is they seem to get issues with released animals. Like they'll be in coastal carpet python range, and they'll be like someone's released albino Darwin carpet or Centralian carpet or Centralian python or diamond python, and it's like, damn, I didn't know this was a problem out in Australia. Well,
weird.
I didn't think it was as big of a problem. I'm sure it is everywhere, but I just didn't assume it would have been as much there with how they crack down on laws.
You know what's a big problem in Australia? Corn snakes. Corn snakes, buddy.
Is it a big problem?
There is actually native populations in the wild of corn snakes in Australia.
As long as
yeah, Lisa just said that too.
Shit, right?
Oh. I
didn't know about the corn snakes. That's pretty cool. Well, I mean, I guess it's not cool, but that's interesting. I should say that's interesting.
Yeah, buddy of mine sent me a picture. No, Albino, bro. The biggest albino you've ever seen in the wild in Australia for corn snakes. Yeah. I might be able to find this picture.
It seems like a lot of stuff when it's like going to Australia thrives really well and takes over. I mean, cane toads and cats. I mean, I feel like anywhere where they're able to thrive, those ones thrive as an invasive, you know, in most places. But, you know, I've heard of it with like possums and stuff too. I think they're on New Zealand and they're causing issues as well as Australia. I didn't know about the corn snakes. That's why lamprey pelters are getting banned, and I think majority of European countries, because there's an area in Greece where California kings were discovered. So then they banned all lamprey pelters, so kings and milks.
Interesting. Did you guys see the scaleless California kings that were posted about a week or two ago?
I didn't see that one.
It was cool. You know, I love that kind of stuff. I'll find the picture, but yeah, no, I thought it was pretty baller.
So with these animals getting essentially relocated all over the world, I mean, it used to be land bridges and plate tectonics. They used to play roles in animals transferring over to different continents and different places. Well, now we're essential vectors for a lot of that stuff now. And I wonder, I know it's not the most ideal thing, but honestly, can we even stop it? Like, even if we shut the pet trade down, I mean, I've heard of children's pythons getting in people's luggage just from people vacationing in a different country. So, I mean, can we really just stop any of it from even happening, even if you just shut the pet trade off? Or we just going to be vectors for these animals to get essentially just sent all over? Voyages, that was another one. You know, people, especially back in the day, that's how, you know, allegedly some of the retics might have gotten on some of the islands, especially across the, you know, on the like Maluku Islands and stuff like that. So I kind of just wonder if it's just part of nature taking its course, even if pet trade wasn't involved. So I kind of wonder, it's like,
I think though the one thing is the most invasive and damaging species, mostly, us. But let's exclude us. Insects. Mostly it's insects, and those are all caused by shipping crates. That's not the pet trade. Cats are one of the most damaging, you know, invasive. You know, they're kind of like, you got the combination of strays and then full-on feral cats, and that's part of the pet trade. But that's part of the pet trade that's not going to get touched because it's cats. You know, it belongs with dogs. Cats and dogs, they ain't going anywhere. But some of the most damaging invasives to the environment are insects and plants. And yeah, those are not caused by the pet trade. So the funny thing is the pet trade, and a lot of it, you know what it is. It's all lobbying. It's all, you know, who's paying to fund these things. And, you know, there's a lot of crazy ideologies.
And essentially, who's the easiest to pick on? I mean, we're by far the easiest to pick on. You're not.
Well, right, because it's like, all right, we're getting all these invasive insects through shipping crates. All right, so what are we going to do? Stop shipping goods back and forth?
Shut down, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Shut down international trade. The gobies that got into Lake Erie, that was through bilge, like barges and like boats coming in. Because gobies can live in brackish water. Well, they live in brackish and salt water, and they can actually adapt to fresh water. Zebra mussels, too. There's nobody that was keeping zebra mussels in a tank, and they're like, fuck these, and they threw them into Lake Erie. No, but the most invasive stuff's all been transferred through cargo. Yeah, Dave?
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because, you know, we both know Lake Erie. So I remember growing up in Buffalo, New York, when the zebra mussels first got in the lake, everyone panicked. And really what it did is it cleared the water up. You could actually see to the bottom. Then the gobies got introduced. Everybody panicked about the gobies, but the gobies, I think, started eating the zebra mussels.
They did.
All the game fish and the Erie water snake started eating the gobies. And the Erie water snake was, I think, on the verge of extinction. And then they thrived when the gobies got introduced.
Oh, Dave, we need to look up articles. William, I don't know if you're from the Great Lakes or know of any of the goby stuff. But I was really into fishing, just like Dave was, especially as a kid. And there was literally fucking articles about how gobies were going to devastate the Great Lakes and the walleye industry. Walleye were going to go extinct. And this was published by the DNR. And you know what gobies are? Gobies are a fucking sculpin. A sculpin. You know what sculpins do?
Right.
They don't really swim that well. They don't chase down prey, really. They just feed off the bottom on mollusks and like anything they can fit in their mouths. They're the Lake Erie water snakes, the northern water snakes that inhabit, like the Lake Erie ones are supposed to be different. I don't think they friggin' are. But those things, their population exploded. If you go to Kelly's Island, you can find handfuls of water snakes because all they do is eat gobies all day because all you got to do is dive down, and the gobies don't try to really swim away well, and they can just grab the gobies and eat them all day. But yeah, they said all this stuff that gobies are going to do this. They're going to devastate the smaller fish in the food chain that walleye and other game fish feed on. And here they're a sculpin. They don't even do that. And this was all published. And it wasn't even like they had time to correct this mistake. This was like a blunder made by somebody that knows nothing about fish. And then this was actually published by biologists, people in the DNR, not for a short period of time, but for a number of years. I'd say a few years at least.
So, you know what the cool thing is about the Lake Erie thing is that's 2 invasives being added to a lake that helped with pollution, helped the game fish, helped the reptilian population. Like, in the end, those 2 invasives made Lake Erie a lot better.
Oh, yeah, birds eat the gobies all the time, too. Like, everything eats the gobies now. The bass eat the gobies because the gobies are really prolific. And, yeah, they don't get much larger than, like once they're, like, pretty big, I don't think anything really wants to mess with them. They're pretty terrible. They're really
4 inches,
really hard.
3-4 inches, man.
Yeah, like it's like, yeah, you don't get, but the funny thing is you'll like this one. Now, this one I don't think you were supposed to do, but my dad and I caught some when I was like 9, and I kept some in a bucket, and we are going to take them and put them in an aquarium. But these things, dude, they need a lot of oxygen. They died like almost like immediately. These things like did not live long at all. We figured like, well, they're small, and the bucket was like this deep, and it wasn't even that hot out, so it wasn't the heat. And within like once we were like near the end of the day, man, those things weren't doing good. Like these things are like dying. My dad's like, like we just gotta get rid of these things. And the seagulls benefited from them a lot, and the rats because during that whole time they were basically saying like, hey, you shouldn't throw them back. So everybody was catching them and stomping on them. But then some people started catching on like, hey, these things work really good for bait. The bass love them.
You can't legally use goby as bait.
Well, people still do, and David just said it too. Here's the thing. These are laws passed by people that don't know fucking shit. We had the one time we were fishing in the Cuyahoga River and we were keeping a rock bass. And this park ranger came and told my dad and I we had to let it go because he thought it was a smallmouth. And then he argued. And at the time I was like 9 or 10. And I clearly knew, we showed him like what a smallmouth was. So, I mean, with all the things that are going on, I mean, what is there? I think there's like 44,000 laws roughly in the United States. They actually say they don't even know exactly how many laws there are. There's a fucking law for everything.
Yeah, right.
William doesn't fish. He's afraid of the water.
Well, no, here we go. I just haven't done it in a while. I used to do it all the time when I was a kid, but then I have ADHD, so I couldn't sit still long enough to fish.
You should go goby fishing. You'll get a bite. You'll get a bite every 20 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten more patient the older I got. I mean, well, especially with snakes. I mean, shit, work with snakes. I mean, teaches you something with patience, especially when you're dealing with mutations and stuff or species that don't breed right away. So
yeah,
no.
So I almost killed his father on a fishing trip.
Oh, Jesus.
My dad?
No, his dad. I took his dad.
I was gonna say, I haven't heard that. Okay, good. What is that? I want to hear this one.
Well, so the one spot at the current river, I told you I want to take you fishing for brown trout. I took his father, and first off, I had no idea how old his father was. I think his dad. How old is your dad now? Is he 70 or late 60s?
Almost 70. He's like 69 something.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey man, this is like a 7-mile hike. I think he's in his 50s or maybe early 60s. I was all like, you sure you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, I take my dog for a walk for like 4 miles every morning. So I was like, okay, well, if you can handle that, you can handle this. So we get about 3 or 4 miles hiking up river, and he's done. Like, it was over. So we had to like cut through the woods to try to get back to the car faster. but we still had to hike miles and miles, and we took a lot of breaks. I felt really bad. We did well. We both caught a lot of fish, but yeah, it was rough.
Dave, you bully.
Sorry. Hey, Junior, what's with the new camera angle? You don't like that side by side by side?
You
Actually, I was
bottom
experimenting, and now I don't know how to get back to that one.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I think that's the best one for us.
I do think
like
that is
angle.
the best one. I think I do like this one better.
Yeah, it's good. Black background. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to see more of me, that's true. Actually, I want to see more of both you guys, to be honest with you.
Okay, Don asked this one. I don't want to ignore him, but visual lavender times lavender hognose pairing is okay. Does it cause problems like low fertility or worse? Definitely low fertility. If you do lavender to visual lavender hognose, even if they're outcrossed for whatever reason, a lot of times the female just has a hard time getting those egg follicles fertilized for whatever reason when it's a visual. Because like if you use a non-visual lavender male, let's say it's just a regular sable, let's say it's a Swiss, a leucistic, anything else, and you breed it to a lavender female, your chances of getting fertile eggs from that female is drastically higher. But I have bred lavender hogs quite a few times because initially it wouldn't make any sense to me why a het lavender male to a lavender female can be okay, but a visual lavender male that just has one extra copy of a lavender wouldn't be okay. And I did find with a lot of my lavender pairings, horrible fertility. But the couple times I got good fertility, I didn't see any issues with the babies. They were normal. They were fairly robust. If you look at lavenders, I'd say too, especially since lavender females don't have the best fertility being bred to another visual lab, it actually makes it hard for people to directly inbreed a lot. I mean, obviously you can directly inbreed with hets just as well too. But I'd say lavender, especially if you look at lavender hognose head structure, you're not seeing much bug eyeing in them. Lavenders are genetically pretty strong when it comes to lineages. They're not overly inbred. But yeah, it's something weird that when you have two homozygous, certain homozygous are fine, and then other ones, yeah, you get like horrible fertility. But I've also bred some lavender females to like sable males and gotten terrible fertility from them too. So it seems like lavender females definitely have a tendency to not have the best fertility. So I just wanted to answer that.
So with lavender, is it a polygenetic trait or is it a
recessive
trait? Recessive?
Yeah, it's recessive. So, the funny thing is, William, there's a lavender corn snake. The lavender corn snakes, similar issues. The lavender corn females have bad fertility. And then lavender false water cobras, I hear of health issues with them too. The funny thing is, though, I've heard of actual health issues with the lavender. I don't know what they are because, I've just heard. So it's kind of like a rumor, and nobody's giving me any details. I just hear it from somebody that heard it from somebody. The only thing I have heard about lavender false water cobras, though, they did say, the one person said, well, I did hear the female's fertility with them is really bad. So the funny thing is, kind of like we're talking about these Pieball Pythons, most likely that's a mutant of the same allele on that animal's genome. Because if you look at it, it's like the kind of same mutant allele. It's possible it could be on a different loci, but it's essentially the same type of mutant. It's doing the same thing. It's causing the same type of phenotype, and then the same other side effects that aren't part of the animal's phenotype, things that you experience with their actual breeding results. So that's very interesting.
So another question I have for you with the hog noses, how well do you guys keep track of the lineage? Can you date or can you track a lot of your lineage back from original wild stock, or is it just
some of it? Yeah,
you got it. Okay, I was just how
roughly some of it. Yeah, some of it's kind of on the rough side, but luckily, my memory isn't as good as it used to be. But there's certain things. It's probably like you, William. There's certain things that that you really care about. You'll remember it. And when I got into hognose, that was right at the beginning of the craze, and there was a lot of wild caught ones. My first few hognose I got were wild caught. So it's kind of easy-ish to have a ballpark of how many generations and the initial locale. Most like my lemon ghost stuff, started from a wild caught, and obviously I crossed into other stuff. But I'd say, especially with the percentages of the localities where they were collected from and the appearance of my initial one, I'd say it's probably a Lubbock, Texas one, which is the most kind of standard locale. And I did have some New Mexico stuff. And then leucistics, we know they're from Colorado. There's another one I don't want to mention, but I think that one may be from Colorado. Not that anybody even cares anymore, but so long ago. Then obviously Dan Sable's being Montana. And then there's things like lavender. You really don't know, but I'd imagine it would be a New Mexico or Texas locale. I'd imagine probably Texas locale.
Right. Okay. I was just genuinely curious because I was when I hear you guys have problems, I know. Well, I don't know, but it sounds like a lot of, especially old school colubrid breeders, seem to have been very focused on like keeping lineages. I always think of the gray banded king community, or a lot of the king snake community in general, where it's very
that community is so
stuff.
fucking different from every other one, though, man. The gray banded, you can't compare gray banded to anything else. They're their own community.
Hang on. But I'm talking about before they were morphs. I'm saying like before there was like these possibilities of new mutations or traits and stuff. Was it more similar to, well, we just keep these lines the way they are because we have no reason to outcross them? Because I remember listening to people like Dr. Richard Ross, and they would talk about, they couldn't fathom breeding, at least not everyone, but they like just an Indian python with a Burmese python. They just seemed absurd to them, So that's why and it sounds like a lot of the colubrid guys, I didn't know if back in the day, and that's why some of these lineages, I don't know, you hear about inbreeding depression with morphs, but you hear about gray banded king guys that are like 30 generations sibling to sibling breeding and have no issues compared to, when you start adding a mutation, a genetic defect. So I kind of wonder, is that the issue like you see with the scaleless corn snake, or the, like you guys were saying with the lavender stuff and the corns, the hogs and all them. So I was curious if maybe a lot of the old lineages were fairly close gene pools, and then you just added a mutation to it, and that could have caused issues with it. Because like I said, I don't know, because I don't keep track of a lot of the old like Trumbauer colubrid stuff.
Can I quote Nick Mutson really quick?
Hang on. You're going to talk about inbreeding, but here's the thing with inbreeding.
Well, no. How about this? Ready?
There's natural inbreeding too, though. I'm going to talk too. Also.
Hey. My argument is this: Shang viper. No, you guys don't know about the Shang?
I don't know anything about a Shang
You
viper.
don't know about the teeny weeny little spot that they occupy?
What?
So.
You're talking about like small, like.
In the wild, Shangs can only be found in a very small range, which means for maybe a million years they've been breeding together with no issues. So yeah, I believe, like what you said, once you incorporate a mutation and the mutation changes everything about the animal, you start having issues when you inbreed too much. But when it comes to wild types, it seems like with wild,
exactly,
because we talked about that too. Yeah.
Now, I'd say with lavender hogs, especially seeing lavender corns, like corn snakes, I would say are not inbred at all. They're like all mixed up. These things are mixed like to the Jesus. But I'd say with seeing with the lavender hog, it's the actual gene. It's actually the gene that's doing that, because you're not seeing these kind of effects with like albino, and like PPA, pink past albino, and hypo. I'd say were initially, the most inbred hognose morphs. And that's, I think, just because it's part of the I don't want to say culture, but for lack of better words, the culture, because there wasn't really many hognose breeders like in the late 90s, early 2000s. They were all like king snake breeders, and they had their small collection of hognose. And they bought a pair of het albinos, a lot of times from the same clutch, or an albino and a het. They'd breed them, they'd get a clutch of babies, and then they'd sell pairs to people, then they'd buy them from that person and breed them. So you got these really inbred albinos that ended up having like a lot of really bad bug-eyed issues. And are albinos, do they make a higher propensity for an individual to have bug eyes, or is this a result of the passive, non-paid attention to like effects of like a lot of inbreeding? And so I'd say a lot of it probably has to, like you said, like inbreeding obviously exacerbates any of this stuff. And then I think it's interesting, like it's a little different between species. Plains hognose, they live in pockets of, prime habitat, but they do kind of dwell around a lot. But there's certain areas too where you can go and it's like, all right, this isolated population has like 200 hognose and there isn't any surrounding areas. It's been like that for 100 years, and their facial structure, their anatomical structure, and everything looks really good. and you know these things have been inbreeding for many generations. And then you have things like gray banded kings that live in like rock piles. I don't know a lot about gray banded kings, but I do know a little bit about like Arizona mountain kings and California mountain kings, and they live in precise rocky habitat, and they're not moving large distances. So I think there's species that are moving more distances, and naturally they're doing a little more outcrossing. And then there's species that do a lot of inbreeding naturally, or a certain amount of inbreeding. But then in captivity, we think any inbreeding is bad.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, even in like mutations too, I've noticed. This is just my observation because I'm not too familiar with the Colubridae and the Boidae clade as far as their mutations. But it seems like the boa and colubrid albinos. Now, correct me with the colubrids, but are they weaker albinos? Because albino boas sound like you can't even breed albino to albino, right, Dave?
Well,
Like
there's
boas,
an eye.
like T negative,
There's
like the call line.
T negative. So what it is there's an eye issue. They're born with, and
Okay.
I should know more about this. I know how to cure it, but I do
Damn
know
it,
you get a
Dave.
higher percentage. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know how to cure it, but no, you get a higher percentage of babies that could have this eye issue. If it goes untreated, their eyes literally, you know those things on 4th of July, the snakes that you light up that little disc and then it expands?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little like pill.
They
Yeah,
call
well
them
that's
snakes, actually.
exactly, literally, they're called snakes. So that's what the boa's eyes do. Like it literally just, and then it explodes.
Right.
Not a good look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
those
a
little
bird.
bastards.
Oh.
Yeah, not a good look.
All right.
Not a good look.
Well,
So
it just seems like pythons, for whatever reason, and they still suffer from inbreeding depression when it comes to the albinos. But I notice albino breeding in pythons seem to be stronger than a lot of other snakes in general when it comes to, continuously breeding the albino. Like I said, it's not that they don't have issues, but they seem to have. They seem to be strong. They're able to deal with it better. It seems like, as far as not having as many deleterious issues compared to the boas, and at least sounds like some colubrids. I don't know about all of them.
So colubrids, a lot of colubrids are bulletproof to an extent, but with the albino thing, it depends on the species. Sometimes the argument is the blindness, and iguanas, they talk about their light sensitivity. When it comes to boas, unfortunately, we get this bacteria kind of deal with their eye that causes an infection. It kind of varies per species, but I think T negative and everything is usually not a good thing because aren't they all blind if they're T negative?
Well, eventually. I think eventually they do. Well, I think they're all somewhat blind, and it only gets worse as they age.
I think they're blind, but certain species handle it better.
Yeah, well, I mean, pythons have the heat pits, so they don't. Because I'll notice, like, if I go in the room and in front of the glass cage, all the carpets will react to my hand moving at night, but the albino doesn't do it until I open the door and it actually sees the heat. So
interesting.
I've noticed that. But I have an albino berm. She will react to any movement. So she could still see something, rather it's a clear vision, or she just sees something moving and she's like, oh, it's fair game. So
last comment I have on this, just with the argument being made, I've never really heard of us worrying about outbreeding unless we've been talking about fixing a mutation with some kind of deficiency. Other than that, I've never heard of anybody in any community talk about outbreeding unless it's morph related.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some stuff you couldn't do it even if you wanted to. Like rough scale pythons started with just a single pair. Maybe I've heard zoos have, even the zoos, I mean, their stuff, even the Australian stock was a small gene pool, and they've been breeding rough scales for 25 years, and they haven't had, as far as I can tell, no real issues, nothing different than any other python would have. And I mean, Antaresia it seems like the smaller the animal, the better they handle inbreeding too. Like Antaresia don't seem to be phased nearly as bad as other stuff, but I could see that because if they're a smaller python, they probably have a smaller range, so they probably interbreed with each other a lot more often than, say, like a retic or something that has a larger range. But even retics, I mean, they're goddamn bulletproof too. They can handle all kinds of shit.
Yeah, I still think this inbreeding conversation literally just leads back to mutations in the end because, again, like, you think about these island species that have been inbreeding for God knows how long and everything else, I think inbreeding is just something that happens. I think inbreeding's a thing we panic over when we start getting morphs that have something going wrong, and that's really all it is. I feel that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like they project, they kind of anthropomorphize. It makes sense. They're like inbreeding is bad inherently, and they like kind of think of it as like within humans. So then they just apply it to like snakes. But there's a lot of like.
Funny part is humans have gone through 2 scenarios of bottlenecking, so we're all pretty inbred too.
Well, if you live in Ireland, maybe.
Cheetahs went through crazy bottlenecking. Yeah. At one point, they estimate like 10, I think it was like 10, 20,000 years ago, there was like 100 or 120 cheetahs left.
No,
they almost went extinct.
Less than that. I think it was.
Was it less
than that? I think it was 12. I think it was literally 12.
I don't know if it's that many. Hold on. I'm going to look this up.
I think it was. Look it up. I think it was pretty small. It was really,
it was very small.
So there's something in Mother Nature that makes sure things can carry on, even if there's only 2 or 4 left, that genetically they'll be strong enough. And if they're not, they'll go extinct. But I just think, I think this is all morph stuff, man. You know, just like, again, I go back to Nick Mutton talking about it. Mutations are going to change everything about the build of the animal.
We're not talking to Nick Mutton anymore, Dave. You don't have to keep bringing him up.
You don't ever talk about Nick anymore? I thought that was fun. I love talking to Nick.
He's on Nick's dick right now. I told him he's gonna.
I'm not on anybody's dick right now. If Chad's listening to this, man, he's not gonna be happy.
Oh yeah, he's gonna send Nick some dirty fucking DMs. So don't you be stealing from me.
They'll probably just send each other gym pics, man, working out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What was I gonna say though about the? What was it? I lost my train of thought. It was.
So hey, I found pictures of that. Remember I said about that Australian corn snake? Let me see this.
Oh my god!
What the fuck is that? That's a corn snake? Oh my gosh!
That's the corn snake found in Australia that my buddy sent me.
Okay.
Wow, that thing's eating really good.
Jesus.
Yes, so that's an AML. So yeah, they are mutations too. So I don't know how they got there. But they're thriving. They're thriving.
Right. Well, I mean, I hear about all kinds of stuff getting over there, like ball pythons, Burmese pythons. I mean, I hear about other stuff getting over there, but whatever the trade is like over there for that stuff, who knows? I'm sure there's
it's a big
guy. Huh?
Oh, I was going to say, every country has a big shoreline, buddy. Anything is possible.
Yeah.
Hey, William, it looks like you might be right. It's not giving me an exact number, but it says during the Ice Age, there's only a few individuals. And they're able to know that probably, I'd imagine, by sequencing their DNA, because they said they were like all insanely related. And that's because they nearly went extinct. And here's the thing. And look at cheetahs, man. Those things look really good. You know, they don't look dumb or stupid or anything. I mean, they don't look all fucked up. No bug eyes.
Most of the time. Sometimes zoos, for whatever reason, have issues. I think the issues, though, nature is brutal. Nature doesn't care how pretty you are, what kind of unique traits you have. If it's not useful, you die. Us in captivity, we'll pick whatever is cuter, whatever is better looking, regardless of how strong that individual is. So I think that's why, like in zoos, because zoos had issues with cheetahs with lazy eyes, kinked tails, stuff that. But I think it's because of just they pick shitty animals.
Probably, and it might be partially environmental. Because I'm looking up physically challenged cheetahs, and man, every cheetah looks really good. Cheetahs look really, really good.
See, that's a mutation.
So
that's the king cheetah.
This cheetah?
Sorry, getting off topic. Yeah,
it's very pretty.
No, we haven't been on topic this entire time.
No, we were supposed to talk about like the 2024 wrap up. We can talk about that really quick. 2024 was pretty good.
We'll bring up 24 later. Hey, what was I going to talk about? I just brought a picture.
The cord snake?
No, I lost it because Junior tried to get back on topic of what the episode's supposed to be about. I lost everything.
We were talking about cheetahs and inbreeding.
Well, I love inbreeding, but I don't know if that's what I want to talk about.
Oh, stop it. You live in Missouri. You got to quit talking like that. You're giving us all bad.
No.
Well,
no,
just me and you.
Yeah, no. There's not that much inbreeding going on. This isn't Alabama, buddy.
I don't
There
know.
isn't
People
much
think we're the
that Dave
same.
knows about.
Oof.
There's a what?
I said there isn't much that Dave knows about. He's like, there's not much. I was like, that you know about.
Itty bitty of everything, man. Itty bitty of everything. So now that Junior's fucked up the flow, what were we talking about? I literally lost everything.
Cheetahs and inbreeding. That's what it was. It was about inbreeding. Talking about like animals stemming from a small population, bottlenecking.
Okay.
But
Well, I had it and lost it again. How many wild boars do you think were introduced to the United States before that population ran wild?
Ooh, that's a good question, actually. Ooh.
Yeah, they're
I'm trying
thriving.
to think of other species that might have. Oh,
Just
man.
took a couple, maybe.
I mean, look at the berms. I think all the berms are closely related. I think they genetically tested a lot of the berms in the Everglades, and a lot of them are pretty. And we get berms bigger in Florida than we do in their native range.
yeah, they look
I believe
good,
that.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
monsters.
they're thriving. No, when you think about how the whole berm thing started and where it's at now, like think about where it's going to be in 20 years.
Oh, I'm curious. Like in a couple million years, like 5 million years, how much will they change? Is what I'm curious. I don't know. I'm curious about that kind of stuff. Like, will they have drastic changes? Will they need to change that much? Because they seem like they're doing really good. So they may not even have to change much. It might still look like berms from Burma or something.
Well, the bigger question is the things around them will have to change to adapt to how efficient the berm is.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot of them are starting to look at them as, at least the babies, as more of a prey source. Like raccoons and bobcats, I've heard raiding nests and stuff like that. I'm sure bears aren't afraid to raid nests or kill the adults if they can get a hold of them. Yeah. Alligators and crocodiles have proven to eat them, so they're just another part of the food chain for them. So it's mainly getting the people in Florida to deal with them.
Well, they deal with them. There's no fixing it.
Deal with them like Australians deal with their pythons. I know that's a big ask, but
what do they do? What do they do over there?
They will they'll have a chicken coop, and a scrub python will take out their prized chicken, and they will keep it there. They won't get rid of it. They won't kill it. They keep it there, or they have it relocated. They don't hack its head off. They don't try to do it themselves, or they just get a relocator to do it, or they keep it and they're on their property. They just
is this a superstition of some kind?
Yeah, well, aren't scrubs native to that area though?
Yeah. No, that's for sure. They are. But I mean, at what point are the berms just going to be just a part of the environment? I mean, maybe
they are part of the environment.
They are. The one thing about the berms, I think there's a lot of propaganda on them, and let me see if you agree with me on this one, William. Because I'll show you right now. Like it essentially is propaganda because like I've seen posts like, "Hey, this is what a Burmese has to eat to get from a baby to this size." So they show a female, of course, because that's the one that gets larger and it's the worst, for the environment. Oh, it can get up to 17 foot. It's more intimidating. And then they give a amount of species it has to eat to get to that size. And it only notates native species. And we know these things are eating a lot of invasives. Now, I'm not saying that Burmese are great for the environment or they're not bad, but they really push it as like, hey, these Burmese can get super gigantic. Not that many are, but like you said, it is pretty impressive that you see a lot of 17 and 18 foot berms coming out from the wild out of there, and it's like, and they're not done growing, and obviously their growth rates drastically slowed down. They might only get a few inches longer, but it's like, it seems like Florida has the potential to have the first documented 20-foot berm because they're getting close to 19.
And then who knows, maybe, and I'm sure those are just oddities. Like, who knows, out of the thousands and thousands they catch, you're only seeing like a percentage of what they're actually, what's actually the actual average size for them. Because like in Burma, in their native range, they're actually endangered, the berms. So we're probably not going to see too many giants. And the
Send some
the native,
Burmese biologists over here to start fucking collecting them and shipping them back. But then they'll say, well, because they are in this environment now, we're, you know, obviously that could be bad too. So
well, it's mainly oh, sorry, Dave, we'll let you talk.
Well, I just want to say, without naming names, we have a mutual friend that went down on a casual herping trip and caught a 17-foot Burmese python that laid 80 eggs
I
a
know
couple
what you
days
mean.
later. Oh, shut the fuck up, man. No names.
I'm not gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say. I know who you're talking about though.
So I'm just
Everybody
saying
knows.
that a casual bunch of guys went down, caught a massive animal that laid 80 eggs, is my point. So maybe it's a little more common than you guys are letting it lead on to
No,
believe.
I'd say it's like it's taken a well. For one, like I don't even know. Like that'd be an interesting one. Maybe Florida DNR has some information on that, or the biologists that are looking at them. I'm like, how long is it taking?
I think TikTok had information on that. That was it.
Like, how long does it take these females to get 17 or 18 foot down there? But that one guy I follow, I forget what his name is.
When was Hurricane Andrew?
He's a younger dude, and he finds a couple like 17 footers a year, and he's found some 18 footers. They're not super common, but they do seem to find a few every year. Like there's definitely a consistency to females, certain females down there getting 17 plus foot.
So all right, Dave, I'll let you talk before I go.
Well, last thing. So Hurricane Andrew was back in 1992. And I remember a lot of the claims in the hobby is it was that hurricane that put a lot of these animals into the Everglades. So that means those big bitches had since 1992 to get that big.
Well,
or the next generation, I don't know.
Well, with Python growth rate, they can get really big really quick depending on how they're eating. Because I think this Daniel Latouche said reproductive female scrub python can get breeding age at 18 months to 2 years old. I mean, that means that things growing relatively quickly to get to a reproductive age. So I'm assuming some of these and what they're doing is they don't judge size. They just, if they can eat it, they can eat it. If they can't, they can't, or they'll kill themselves trying. They've seen scrub pythons do that with plenty of prey items, trying to eat a wallaby they clearly couldn't eat, but they killed themselves anyways trying to. So they're always trying to level up. Retics do it. All pythons will do it to try to grow as quickly as possible. And something else I've noticed, they're eating a lot of deer, but are they eating roadkill deer? Because I know pythons will eat roadkill. So in the U.S., roadkill is a lot more common than in a lot of other countries. I could tell you from Indonesia and Africa, I rarely ever saw roadkill for whatever reason. Rather, they're cleaning it up right away. But judging off the trash I would see in Indonesia, I don't think that's the case. But you see roadkill deer, depending on the time of year, quite frequently. So I'm assuming these pythons may not be having to even kill these larger predators. They might just be happenstance coming across them and just trying to eat them. So I think that's another advantageous thing to get these giant animals too. So
there's a lot of,
I don't know.
There's a lot of gators from to eat, and then also the deer in Florida are smaller. So there's like a lot of smaller like fawns. I mean, obviously they can eat a young deer, but even the adult deer down there, they're not like super big. So like a 17-foot, 16-foot berm, it could easily take an adult deer in Florida. And you always see them in the Everglades and these grassy areas, which look perfect for a berm to lay out in.
Right. Well, and then none of the prey items are familiar with a big python that can eat them.
True.
So
Yeah. They're gonna walk right over it.
But I truly think I'm kind of curious. Will these Burmese pythons take advantage of roadkill? Because I can't imagine that Florida is any better than anywhere else in the U.S. where you just get every quarter of a mile you get a dead deer of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. I mean, there's a lot of berms around that loop road, although I don't think that's getting much roadkill at all. But there's certain roads that cut through the Everglades. And I mean, here's the thing. You know how it is, William. If there is a raccoon or a small deer that gets hit by a car and then it runs off and it dies near the edge of the road and a berm comes across it, it's going to eat it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Unless it's rotting, but
Right. like I said, though, I wonder if that could also contribute to some of these animals, getting the giant, because all they're doing is trying to level up. That's a pipe. Well, really any organism, is to try to level up and grow as quickly as possible, so you get out of that vulnerable stage. And pythons, I mean, all pythons will do it. And it seems like the more you elevate their prey items, the bigger they'll grow. Their bodies will they'll blow up. I have tons of pythons that are huge for me, just feeding them bigger and bigger and bigger prey items. And I think you see it in captive retics too. I mean, I think that's why we don't get giant retics. You just get fat retics, because we cap them out at a certain size prey item, and they just get fat over gaining length. It's because we're not stretching the stomach wall the same as if you give it a really large meal.
Junior, we had a conversation about the leopard gecko that used to be called moose. Damn.
Oh, moose.
Damn,
okay.
Will.
Yeah, the
Damn.
giant lineage. Yeah, that's all selectively line bred. Geckos to achieve larger sizes.
So it was line bred. It wasn't so much a dietary thing that if you
It's both. It's definitely both. I tell people that too. I mean, here's the thing. I have some giant lineage leopard geckos, and they're one of my least favorite things to sell, because I do get a lot of people asking for them. Somebody at the Cleveland show, they asked, and my whole pitch and information on the giants isn't really what the people want to hear. They're like, oh, these are the leopard geckos that get real big. I'm like, yeah, if you feed the shit out of them. I was like, if you don't pound them with food, I was like, they don't get that big. I was like, they're like the other thing is too, they're not that many generations, of selectively line breeding the biggest ones. And the thing is too, it's like, that's one thing. All polygenics aren't equal. Like, you could pick up a leopard gecko from some, lineage that happen to have better genetics to make larger animals. And if you start with that one, you're going to get better results. Now, the big ones that Ron Tremper started with, I'd say were probably okay. I'd say because Steve Sykes picked up giant ones from him. And then Steve, I think, had some of his own big leopard geckos, and he reselectively continued to line breed for these giant leopard geckos. And Steve's are pretty impressive. And Steve has, broken Moose's record and the records following Moose many times. I think Steve's has some around 200 grams now. He's had multiple 170, 180, 190 gram geckos, leopards.
So there's the giant. Okay, so giant Chinan leopard geckos. There's the German giants and bearded dragons. Frank Martin in boa constrictors has what people consider possibly a giant line that's in his boas. Could there genetically be a trait that makes an animal a giant that's reproducible?
Well, about a mutant, probably not a mutant. Anytime you see mutant gigantism, it affects the pituitary gland, in humans. And I don't even know if I'd assume that might be a genetic condition, or that could be, just a defect of the gene. It might not be actually like a recessive trait or a dominant. I don't know anything really about that one much. But when it comes to reptiles, and then even dogs, look at dogs. They've selectively line bred them to be small and large, and then certain species seem to have more alleles that you can manipulate to change the anatomical characteristics and of that species. Leopard geckos, they did it. Can you selectively line breed bigger hognose and bigger corn snakes? Yeah, but it's going to be hard, and the difference is probably going to be really minute. Most of these species, that's the thing too, trying to undo millions of years of evolution, especially a hognose snake. They found fossils of hognose snakes in Kansas, plains hognose, 10 million year old fossils. They look the fucking same 10 million years ago.
Exactly. So, and then if you get them bigger too, you're just shortening their life. Even if it's a genetic thing, it's the same thing with humans. You're just going to shorten their life. You see it with dogs. Great Danes have some of the shortest lifespans outside of some of the, the more the pugs and stuff. Just because of their size, they're not going to live as long. And it's the same thing with snakes too. If you get a snake big, it can get big, but it's not a sure sign that they're going to live that long at all compared to a python or a snake that you keep on the smaller end.
Right. And that's one thing too, you're saying with large traits in reptiles and even small traits, because since reptiles, they're ectothermic and their growth rate depends on the food intake and then the temperature they're kept at. like hognose snakes, like there was somebody that had a 4-foot hognose. And that thing wasn't like a giant lineage. It wasn't anything special. I have some females that you could probably get that close to, but you have to feed the hell out of them, and it's very unhealthy. And you get these giant slaunch donkey, long-ass hognose. They don't breed. They don't do well. It's unnatural.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's because you're keeping them at high temps, and you're just constantly feeding them. So they're just metabolic spike after metabolic spike. And instead of just the natural kind of ups and downs, you're just going boom, 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 boom. You're not even giving them a rest. And so you're basically maxing them out at their full potential. And, I've heard people too, they're like, oh, I have this big hognose, but I never really fed it that much. And it's like, and it's still a big one. And it's like, this is a giant hognose. And it's like, no, it's not. I have those same ones. And a lot of that is attributed to that animal's metabolic rate was a little higher. And as long as you're feeding it, a lot of them will continue to grow. And you can accidentally get a hognose too big very easily in some cases. But yeah, you get these different ranges. Some hognose tend to stay a little smaller. And that's just speaking on hognose as a species. But I know it's similar with retics. And to quote Dave, Nick Mutton was talking about that too with the dwarf retics and feeding intakes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, people still, if you look at the way people feed this dwarf stuff, they'll feed them the exact same way as you would feed your mainland retics, and they'll get nearly as big. Maybe not quite as big, but they'll get nearly as big. I remember listening to a podcast with, what's his face? Cameron from Bushmaster. And he said he caught maybe he didn't catch them. The collectors would catch like 200 Jampian retics. And he said none of them would get over 6 foot, 5 to 6 foot gravid females. And you might rarely see one 7 foot. But in captivity, shit. What Jasper line, I think he got his up to 17 and 18 feet.
A super dwarf lineage one? And that's just from feeding
dwarf retic. Yeah, that's
dwarf,
just from feeding it. Yeah, but either way, you can get these super dwarfs really big if you feed them like you feed a mainland retic. But if you feed them like they're supposed to be fed, and from what I've seen, they spend most of their time in caves, so they're probably just eating a shitload of small bats, which is going to be a different growth rate than if you're feeding it a pig.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes too about their lack of divergence from their initial genetic makeup, because it's still all there. It's like, all right, the food's here, and now they're achieving like the same or close to the same size as these mainlands. So, and how long have they been on that island? Long time, I presume.
Uh-oh.
All right, looks like everything.
We just lost him. Yeah, so that is interesting what he's saying about the whole growth rate on those, because I have heard that as soon as you put the mainland blood into any of that dwarf stuff, you're going to get very large babies, or not large babies, but animals that could get bigger. So arguably, kind of like what I told you with Colombian boas, my Colombian females are like 6 years old, and they're like 4 or 5 pounds, and they'll breed without any issues, and you'll get 15 to 18 babies. In my bigger Colombian females that are 30 pounds, maybe 40 pounds, mostly 30, some years they'll only give me 26 babies. So I do like this, raising them slower. I'd be very curious if you took some of the mainland retics, gave them a few more years, and raised them slower, if you can get a female that is significantly smaller, breeding without any issues.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're all right. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one, because it's like, even like what, because Nick said it, William, I'm interested to hear how big are your African rocks, because Nick he wouldn't give me a length, but it sounded like his African rock female lane is only like 9 foot long.
Oh yeah, mine's maybe, she's a little over 2, and I think she might be 6 foot long. She's smaller. She's quite a bit smaller than my mainland berm. My mainland berm's 7 to 8 foot and the same age, and I feed them the exact same, just retired breeder rats. But it's crazy. That rock python will eat the same size rats as those 7 and 8 foot berms. They have little heads in comparison, but they can choke down some pretty big meals. So, they definitely can grow. If you feed them, they'll grow. I've seen some monsters. I've seen there was a footage of one up in a tree, and this thing was fucking enormous. It was like the size of a person. They didn't get a length, but they got a general girth was about this, I don't know, as big as my quad. So I mean, it was a big ass snake. It was probably eating deer or antelope at that point. So
the funny thing is, you mentioned that. I remember there's this picture. It's a really old Reptiles magazine. It's from the 90s, and it had like, I think it was like the Big Six, and it had like green anacondas, it had an African rock, it had a scrub berm, and I think it included like the Indian python too. But anyway, they had a picture of an African rock, eating a very large. I think it looked like a smaller African rock. I think eating like a rat, and it was like really massive for its size. And then, I mean, you're aware of them, and they're always impressive pictures to see as a kid, or even now, of like an African rock eating like an antelope.
I watched one eat a hyena. I go,
you watched it? That's really cool.
I go, can you imagine taking down a hyena? I go, man, you're a real badass.
Yeah, that's insane.
There was a video. There was a video of a retic. It was just like an old school. This is back before PETA got involved with films and animal cruelty or whatever. And there was a video of a leopard, or not leopard. Well, it was a leopard and a retic, and the leopard or the retic killed the leopard. And then they had another one of a retic fighting a tiger. I go, Jesus Christ. This is not
so these were
animal.
intentional. They're intentionally putting them.
I think they were these were animals that people actually, I don't know if they went into the wild and kind of coaxed them to confront each other, or they actually set up a studio. And it was old black and white film. This is, like I said, before PETA and them got involved, or Humane Society got involved with a lot of filming and movies and shows and stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of animal cruelty in movies and films back then.
I have to.
Are you guys both staring at me?
I have to pack up a mystery box real quick. I got somebody picking up a mystery box. I'll be right back.
All right, Dave.
You gonna do that? All right.
I got to make a 1.1.
You get out of here, bud. You're fine. I'll take care of William.
Be easy on me, Dave.
Well, that's fine. Well, did you have any questions for me, buddy?
How's the move?
Well, it's come. No, we can talk about it. It's coming along. Blue tongue skinks, corn snakes are going to be tomorrow. Rat freezers, mouse freezers, those are going to be tomorrow. And at that point, the animal aspect of the move is done. The building's settling in. The first few days I was battling some cold spots. I think I got all that worked out in the new space. And I'm excited. You saw it. It's such a nice little spot to hang out. Like nothing too crazy. Little bit of room left over to do things that I want to do. Honestly, I think I've left enough room in the front half of the building that I can start going crazy with bioactive stuff.
Ooh, I think bioactive, huh?
Well, I already have a couple bioactives that we've like finished. They're kind of growing in at this point. But I really want to do my horn lizard one I've been talking about for like 2 years. I even thought about hitting up that ant guy up in Canada, the not the podcaster, the
YouTuber.
Who is? Yeah,
YouTuber.
no,
I don't remember his name. He's a big YouTuber though in the I guess ant community, Canadian ant or Canadian
world.
Is it ants or Canadian ants? I know who you're talking about though.
Yeah, so I thought about reaching out to him, just some suggestions about something I'm going to work on, but no, it's good. Honestly, it feels like it's manageable. And I think that's the hardest thing about this industry is, sometimes we get it to a unmanageable point. But no, I'm pretty excited about it. This whole episode is supposed to be about this past year. I've talked to a lot of people, and I think 2024 was not horrible for people that adapted to what was going on around them. I know Junior had a pretty good year. The one thing I thought was really funny about a conversation we had was you did a show not too long ago in Kansas City, and you sold a shit ton of ball pythons, but all the cool stuff you brought with didn't sell at all.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it was interesting.
But for a lot of shows, that's the polar opposite. If you went to Tinley with that same lineup, you probably wouldn't have sold a single ball python, and you might have sold all your miscellaneous. So, I don't understand why the door at a show like that in Kansas City for who came in demographic wise would be so much different from every other show that you couldn't successfully sell the things that make you happy. You know what I mean?
I kind of wonder. I noticed. I guess it depends on. I always look at species as different categories. Like you got like the ball pipe, the big. What would you call it? The big four, big five, like your balls, corns, bearded dragons, and leopard geckos, and maybe even crested geckos could fall under where most people who might even be kind of interested in reptiles know what they are or familiar with.
You left turtles out, man. Turtles are probably number one on that list.
Yeah, I guess red ear sliders. Yeah.
Turtles, tortoises will call number one. Everything else follows that.
Right. But as far as people know what they are, and then you got like the category underneath. Well, I guess if you want to put turtles on their own, and then the other big five, and then you got like the species people are familiar with, but they got a bad rep, which are like your carpets. I think your blood pythons can fit under there. Your boas. I'd even say your retics, your dwarf retics, and all that. That's gained a lot of popularity.
Boas aren't on that at all.
You don't think so?
No, boas
might be up higher.
No, boas have never been known for attitude. You're talking about all these attitude species. Bloods that are stereotypical. Carpets are No, boas are not like that, man.
Oh my God. I think
Central American imports, maybe. No, you're out of your mind, man. Your fear of boas blows my mind.
All your boas were some of the hissiest things.
Bullshit, man.
Yeah.
Look at these hands. No one bites Dave. I don't have any issues with the boas. That's propaganda, buddy. That's boa propaganda.
Just because I saw those welding gloves in your shop. Stop that.
Yeah, for welding. I like to weld things.
Yeah, here we go. But anyways, all right, sorry. But I'm not saying, I'm saying they're like animals that are like a tier below that where they're known, but they're not, I don't think they'll ever make it to the big five or whatever. And then you got like, it seems like all the other species, where you're talking like your white lips, your weird gecko and anole species and stuff like that, where it's almost more of an educational situation at shows. Because most people, if it's not on a YouTube channel, most people don't know what or a popular YouTube channel, most people don't know what they are. So it's a lot of educating.
I agree with that. And, I will say for some of the stuff you have, I wouldn't say it's a special buyer, but like, we talk about all the time. I love your collection. I like the breakdown, I like the diversity. Like, looking at your collection was actually a good time. When you go to a collection that has like the same thing over and over again, but different colors, kind of sucks.
I got a question. Would you look at some of like the odd stuff, like your Indians, your Sri Lankans, your what would be another one that might fit under there?
I think Sri Lankans, again, are their own category. Indians are so much more common.
Well, I'm talking about as far as like maybe even your true red tails could fit under this too, but like a classic. Like I've noticed there's a lot of, you can almost hit a class of classic animals where I post those animals and you'll get people coming out of the woodworks. I remember working with those 20 or 30 years ago when I was a kid. Kind of like people with their old school classic muscle cars and stuff. I feel like you're getting the same kind of thing, but with snakes. It sounds weird, but I'm almost getting that vibe where you're getting a lot of these older guys that are getting interested in what they were into 20 or 30 or more years ago.
I think it's everybody wants what they can't have. And when they were able to have it 20 years ago and now it's a rarity, they want it more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's why I call it classic car vibes, at least what it's given me. Where it's a bunch of people into the old stuff.
Well, we love retro, buddy. Retro is always in. Right. But the Sri Lankans though, like literally in the hobby, I saw the Sri Lankans one time by chance, like in 2003, and I could have got them, but I didn't understand what I was looking at in 2003. Kind of like when I had a bull. Yeah, but I wouldn't have had them today though. The way my collection has changed and the way my life's changed over the last 20 years, they wouldn't exist right now. They'd be in somebody else's collection.
Right. I get that. It's
Yeah.
just a shame. That's why I started collecting them, just because it's like one of those, like, you can't get any more Indians or Sri Lankans or even rocks. I mean, there are people breeding them, but I mean, they're like one virus, one fire away from their collection getting wiped out, and they could be gone from the hobby. So it's kind of like treasure. Get them while get them if you can do it, but trying to keep those species going for future generations.
Some, but again, Sri Lankans are in their own little category because,
they won't be.
Man, I don't even think I've ever seen a clutch of Sri Lankans hatching on Facebook.
Really?
I don't think.
I'll show you.
Please.
I know a few of them.
No, Hey, Junior, do you have any species over the years you think got lost in the hobby, like you just can't find anymore?
Man. There's some, but then they're in other countries. Like I'm not gonna say no, I didn't have them. I thought about getting them at one time, but I'm gonna say it completely butchered. But Paradora masobi, they're the same genus as what they call panther geckos, or I can't remember what the hell's the other common name for them. But they're like a black gecko with little white speckles on them. There's very, very few of those. I mean, it's kind of like, the reptile community is like fairly young, but I feel like there's things like William is saying that, are kind of like close, like those New Zealand green geckos, like those are highly protected, but there's very, very few of those in captivity. Those are almost virtually impossible to buy. I mean, like hardly anybody even has them available. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any species. I think there is for sure species that you could have that you no longer can in like amphibians, especially frogs, if you to ask Mike Novi. Thinking of snakes, there's nothing I can think of. Geckos, there might be a couple, but I can't think of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like python-wise, I mean, the number one python I hear the most about, as far as that used to be not readily available, but used to be a thing, was the South African rock python. That used to be a thing 15, 20 years ago. Oh, is that the cat eater? This is
supposed to be. Yeah, it's supposed to be a Sri Lankan. Yeah.
Put it back up. No, okay, yeah. I can see it now.
Well, we couldn't see the head.
Yeah. There's an up close of the head. Their heads are cool. They're like a peach with greenish.
Yeah, very unique.
They got beefier heads too. I've noticed compared to the Indians, they seem to have a lot more robust looking heads.
How is one of those? I know the African rock was always very aggressive. How are the Sri Lankans?
Oh, they're horrible.
Yeah,
they're much worse. They're much worse than the rock.
They're worse than a rock python?
Oh, yeah. So the rock python is a snake that you can tell it's on the teetering of losing its mind. The Sri Lankan python, as soon as you open the tub or cage, it's ready to lose its mind. Like this thing, that female put me through hell. Absolutely. Think of like a wild-caught blood python, but bigger and more athletic. I mean, it was as soon as I touch it, she'd turn around, come flying back at me. I'd have to let go of her, otherwise she'd bite me in the shoulder. She would crawl underneath racks, start crawling up the racks. I'd have to pull the rack out, trying to get her. She's coming back out of the rack to try to bite me. I go, my God, I can see why you guys almost went extinct in the hobby. I go,
should we breed a Sri Lankan to a blood?
I'm liking this idea.
Horrible.
How big do Sri Lankans get?
They can get about rock python size, roughly.
All right, I want to see a Sri Lankan to a blood now.
Oh no, I could not even imagine. I'm thinking like the most aggro. I think it'd be worse than a rock python. I could not imagine. Bigger head.
Oh.
The only good part about it might hold shit a little longer, like a short tail would. But other than that, nothing else I would imagine be good about that. Hey, if we did these hybrids, does that mean Jeff gets all of them?
I'll take
You guys-
one. I'll take
Oh, stop.
one. I'll take one Sri Lankan blood, a male.
Take a pair, buddy. Take a pair.
A pair, and then post it just so I can get all kinds of hate. You're like, this is why there ain't going to be any left. I'm like, why? Because somebody bred a pair one time.
So for the last 2 years, Bree has put the angry ball with the what's the blood ball? Super ball, yeah.
I saw that. She showed me.
Yeah, and then she backs it up with a Woma python.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
That's funny.
You know, the angry Super Bowl would be probably a viable animal. And well, I'm sure they'd have some fertility issues, but I'm sure you could still interbreed those animals. Once you add the Woma python, though, I think that's when you're going to run into sterile problems as far as infertility issues, more infertility issues, I'm sure.
I think you're right on that, and I've brought this up before, but somebody in a conversation made the point that when you start crossing pythons like a Woma and a ball python, it changes everything about the egg. And you know, like Woma python eggs are so like delicate. You get a droplet of water on them, they get mold, they die. So you got to find that happy middle ground of what you'd incubate a ball python, incubate a Woma at to actually get viable eggs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm sure. You ever seen the fucking blackhead Woma hybrids? They just look like Woma pythons.
That sounds like a dumb fucking hybrid.
Yeah,
that is
the Australians are doing it. Well, no, actually, I think it's I think I saw one American do it. I think
that's a dumb hybrid, buddy. That's a non-exciting hybrid. They already look the same.
Yeah, no, it's a little disappointing for sure. Especially how pretty each one of those are on their own. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of those, like the two hybrids Bree showed me, those are actually pretty. Or they didn't have any morphs in them. They were just two wild type animals.
I'll be honest. I think one of those two were in Ben's collection already.
Really? Which?
I don't remember which one, but I believe one of those two was actually in Ben's collection, and the other one came from another collection. Man, I don't remember which one he had, but he definitely had one of those animals in that building.
Damn, really?
Yeah.
I thought maybe he tried to do a angry ball one time, but I don't remember whatever came of it. Huh.
Yeah.
Angry ball is a good name because everybody's angry about hybrids, so I think that's a really fitting name.
That's a good point. Good point. So, we have questions from anybody? Should we smack out some of those guys before we ramble on about something else?
Somebody asked about my mystery boxes, but the problem with that question is this kind of pertaining to me. The mystery boxes are fun, and you should buy one because the value of the animal's more, and you get entered into a raffle, and it's a really good time. If you don't want to get one, that's fine also. We're always running them. I got another one where you have the Chinese New Year themed ones. That is a Christmas box theme. They're not normally delivered in gingerbread houses like that, but that guy handpicked it up, so this isn't a gingerbread house. Not a real one. It's made out of paper.
Right.
Have you done any 8 crazy night boxes?
Oh, what?
It's Jewish. I'm back to the Jew thing.
Yeah.
I'm not Jewish. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, you know what you should do? You should do a Jewish hognose box, charge $600, and put a $50 hognose in it.
Oh, man. Damn, Dave.
Yeah. You could do those ones, Dave. That'd be a good one. Yeah, 8 crazy nights, right? Because Adam Sandler had that cartoon movie that I watched part of it.
Well, he had a song. He had a song that turned into that eventually. Yeah.
No,
this guy,
no,
Lisa seen a Woma the blackhead. She's seen a Woma blackhead. That's an interesting hybrid because it's like it seems a little redundant because they're similar looking. Blackheads just have that unique, much darker phenotype, and they get larger. So I feel like it's gonna just like in between of them.
You know what's silly is whenever I see it a lot with Australian keepers, but the line, as far as I know, they're more line bred traits, but they're trying to breed the blackhead out of the black-headed python and make it orange. I go, wow, it just seems like you just want to work with a Woma python.
Yeah, right.
Called the Woma python. I don't know. It just seems a little odd to me.
It does.
Well-
And yeah, then there's selectively line breed Womas to be darker and try to get one with like a black head and
darker
black
heads,
banding.
yeah. It's like we just want them to be. We want them to be the other species, but we don't want them to really be the other species. Yeah.
I heard
Nope.
blackheads are kind of a pain in the ass. That does seem like a big difference. Because I've heard of people with blackheads where the females try to eat the males, and I'm not really hearing of these issues with Womas. And then blackheads, I hear people having a hard time getting, eggs, while Woma people seem to get, a decent amount of clutches.
Well, I know people get the black-headed python eggs fairly easy. It's the incubating part. They seem to be harder to incubate than even Woma.
Harder than Womas?
That's what I hear. I hear they're
Really
a lot harder, but I hear they can be harder.
Well,
but,
how do they incubate their eggs in the wild? Do they
burrows? From what I hear, I guess like animal iguana or not iguanas, monitor burrows and stuff like that.
Maybe like a sandy, like clay-like substrate.
Yeah, clay probably substrate. And I don't know if they're actually if they're actually coiling around the whole clutch and lifting them off so they're not actually touching the moist sand or ground. Because I know pythons I've seen pythons do it where they just wrap the entire clutch and the clutch isn't even touching the ground. They're just suspended in the air. So I don't know if they're able to do that to keep them from getting moist
if they're in burrows and it's sandy, sand is really well drained. So there wouldn't be a lot of moisture contact even if they are touching, if it is sandy substrate. But yeah, because like I don't know, the soil there where I have seen them, like in pictures depicting of this is their environment, seems like it's kind of dry, hard clay. And it makes sense that they're going to retreat in a burrow that's going to have some degree of humidity. I never knew their eggs were that hard to incubate, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so you know what's weird about this conversation? I've heard the complete opposite. Like I've heard of breeders that actually got away from their Woma pythons because the difficulty of the eggs, they moved on to blackheads because it was that much easier. So are you sure about this, Will? This might be missing.
I've always heard black-headed pythons were a bit more challenging.
I think the breeding, maybe the breeding part is more, but I don't think.
Sometimes you hear reverses, though. I've heard the same with like Gila monsters and betas. Some people will tell me Gilas are really easy to work with and they're a lot calmer and nicer, and betas are the aggressive ones. And then then you hear other people say the exact opposite. And with my experience, even though I have no experience with Gilas, from the Gilas I have seen, and every fucking time somebody gets bit from a heloderma, it's like always a Gila. Seems like betas are nicer, but then sometimes I hear that flip flop. So I feel like it's like that. I don't
know. The way I kind of look at it is that black-headed pythons and Woma pythons were introduced to the hobby around the same time, and Woma pythons used to be a $15,000 snake at one point, and look how much faster they dropped in price.
You're right.
Compared to black. I think Woma pythons are frankly prettier than black-headed pythons, in my opinion. But you see a whole lot more. You see a lot. Some of the line bred stuff, Dave. What was that sound? Are you serious right now?
I like the Womas, but that black neck and head is very appealing to me. It's got that venomous look to it, that Australian venomous look.
I feel like the blackheads have more contrast, and people love that like black and white contrast. Right. I feel they
pull the ball python. Unless you get, I've noticed the Western blackheads seem to hold their black and white better than the Easterns, which are the more common ones. They tend to look better as babies and then fade as they age. They're one of the oddest of the Australian. Most Australian pythons start ugly and then mature into something prettier. The Eastern blackheads tend to be a bit, not totally the exact same, but they tend to be a little prettier as babies and dull more as they age. At least the older wild stock. Some of the line bred stuff is getting better, but generally speaking, that's how I kind of look at at least the Easterns.
Do you think maybe? Do you think the albino blackhead project didn't take out because it was a T-negative albino, or do you think that was mismanaged?
I think it just. I heard it's a pretty failure to thrive animal, at least from what I heard.
Failed to thrive.
Yeah, it's kind of like some of the other stuff out there.
Well, what you got there, Junior? You got eggs hatching?
Yeah, I got babies hatching. Somebody told me to whip out a hog on cam, so I'm whipping out a hog on cam.
I think he was talking about your penis, buddy.
The other hog.
No. They just say it like that in the Hoggos community. Anytime somebody wants to see a picture of a hog, like, can you whip out a hog and show it to me? That's just kind of
Oh, really? You guys say that to each other?
all the time. That's typical. That's how you ask for Hoggos pictures. Do you have a fat hog you can show me? It's like, show me your hog.
You need to make underwear with hogs on it. I think that would be very good. I would buy some.
Damn. Well,
you would too, Dave. Stop that.
I'm not proportional like you two guys are.
Well, I'm Asian, so I'm not either.
Is your dad really Asian? Because I want to say Mr. Miyagi.
Watch the old Karate Kid and tell me he doesn't look like my dad. It's pretty funny.
He looks like a 70-year-old Mr. Miyagi, not a 95-year-old Mr. Miyagi, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Very deceiving. Very deceiving. I can't read that little words down there.
Something about that was.
And that's where it says whip out a hog on cam.
Oh. I could whip up.
What are we whipping out, Dave?
Well, my version of a hog on cam is very different than your version of a hog on cam.
Do it.
I could pack it, but it's gonna take a second.
Oh,
by the way, hey, hold on. What's this?
Oh, is that the albino albino ball berm?
Ball berm, buddy.
Ball or whatever. Yeah.
Isn't that thing beautiful?
Is that Bob Clark? And now it's black. Now I just see us.
No, that's not. Let's
Bob
advertise.
Clark? If it's Bob Clark, there'll be little black speckles on it too.
Oh God, the mite face.
Oh, come on, guys.
Oh, okay, what is that?
It's like we got.
I don't know who that is.
We've got
CPR. I don't really know who that is. I don't know anybody in that community.
I know the picture. I just don't.
They've been ousted for making hybrids. Everybody I don't understand how everybody loses their mind over hybrids. Like if everybody was doing it and was fucking things up, I could see it. But like I don't know of any instance that anybody got fucked over by like a python hybrid.
Never.
Well, you know what? Maybe something controversial. I don't know. I think the problem when you start talking about the hybrid stuff is because of how little we know about nidovirus and how every species could have a nidovirus. And if we start hybridizing these animals, especially like a African species and an Australian species that haven't came in contact for 30 million years, is that the issues we're having with a lot of these pythons? I'm sure it could even be just green pythons and Australian or like New Guinea carp, or not New Guinea carp. It's like green pythons from New Guinea and then Australian carpet pythons, or vice versa, like retics and berms and all them. I'm kind of wondering, I'm wondering if we're having more issues because of that.
Well, there's hardly any hybrids. I'd say we're having issues with nidovirus because ball python people are slobs.
Hey,
slobs that don't know how to quarantine.
Shut the fuck up. You got every community has their problems, buddy.
Yeah, the ball python community's problems is they're all fucking slobs. They're all buying their next $30,000 ball python from some other breeder to throw on their collection that they got from 80 different people. And they're like, I wonder how mine have nidovirus.
Oh, supposedly.
I wonder how mine supposedly have nidovirus.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know. That I've heard of that potentially being because I mean, look at the green pythons. Some of the now. Steve Tillis said for whatever, I think it was like 7 different strains of nidovirus they found in arboreal tree vipers. So for whatever reason, arboreal snakes seem to have more strains of nidovirus, or it seems to be that way. Why ever arboreal snakes would have more strains than say a terrestrial snake. So I wonder, would a mamba have just as many strains since they're more of an active, not an ambush predator like a tree viper would be? Would they have just as many or even more strains of nidovirus? And it's, it's kind of like if there's potentially 7 different strains of nidovirus if you're mixing a northern chondro and a green chondro, what's the chances out of the multitude of nidoviruses, one of them are the more lethal one to the other species? You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like when you start mixing these animals that are from different continents or even same continent, but different on different sides of a mountain range that haven't been connected for 10 to 12 million years. And we all know how fast viruses can evolve. So who's to say these viruses aren't a product of that kind of, and I know shitty quarantine too. I know how ball python people are.
Right.
This ball python did, you know what always makes me cringe is when I hear a ball python guy say, I have a carpet and a boa and a retic or a berm just to feed my rats to when my ball python doesn't want to eat them. And I go, God, that just makes my skin crawl when I hear people say that. I go, yeah. These
garbage disposals?
Yeah. Because they're just
well, it's not like we're like dipping it in the mouth of the other animals, like giving it to that garbage disposal, buddy. Well, like, what are you talking about?
All it takes is the ball python to strike it. Saliva gets onto that rodent, doesn't eat it though, and you go, well, I'm just going to take this out and give it to a different one. You've never. You know what this sounds like? You know what this sounds like? This sounds like the time you got herpes from taking a poo at a McDonald's. Is it the same thing? Yeah, have you got herpes from taking a poo at McDonald's, Dave? Is that what you're
No, from doing a line of coke off the toilet seat, maybe, but not taking a poo. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah, only if I let my lip drag. You gotta let your lip drag afterwards.
Oh, Jesus.
How is the quarantine in the ball python community, Dave? Because I see a lot of ball python people.
Man, I don't know. I don't know how. No, we don't know shit. Better. Who said that? No.
I used to see videos of the big ball python guys at the time opening up a box of new snakes in their collection and putting it into a tub next to their own snakes.
Truths. Those are truths.
I'm not saying I don't see it now, but I've noticed a lot more people doing it in an enclosed area. Rather not, they're just doing it there because of the video and then just moving it to their collection.
They probably are.
Quarantine. I don't know.
That sounds like a ball python person move to lie about quarantining. That would be a ball python person saying, because I see these big ball python breeders, we got the new gene and we're pairing to this. I'm like, that one came from this guy and that other one came from this fucking guy. The only way that you're breeding them in your collection is you're just not quarantining, dude. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. Well, here's the reality in the hobby. Quarantine is not something anybody worries about until they got to worry about a bad animal. So most people have to learn the lesson the hard way. But my point being is, even with everybody knowing what could happen, I don't think quarantine is as big as people think overall in the hobby across all species.
I've noticed the people who have had the worst issues with nidovirus outside of the people who were crossers were also people with the most diversity. Because I've noticed a lot of those people it's hard to say.
When was the last time you heard about a ball python? When was the last time you heard about a ball python collection crashing because of nidovirus?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about a strictly like a. I'm going to throw a name out there because I know he's just a ball python guy, but say someone like Brock Wagner or.
Damn, bro, why'd you go with Brock? Why'd you have to go and throw Brock's name out?
Justin's another one.
Don't throw his name. Throw like a B class, B or C class, buddy. You're going too high. You got to go lower.
I don't know.
I don't know, like MJ. MJ's a ball python keeper. I'd throw his fucking name out there.
He keeps a lot of his other stuff in the same room. But I'm just saying, as far as someone who primarily just keeps ball python, and they might keep their other species away from their ball pythons. But then when you're talking like 15 years ago, the last big guys in the ball pythons, they kept all their shit in the same room. They kept a lot of their, and I've
with
seen,
their boa constrictors.
Well, and their Angolans, and their blood pythons, and their carpet pythons, and their Burmese pythons, their retics. What else can we talk? I mean, probably every species you can imagine.
Well, how about this?
They did?
Yeah.
Fucking, this water bowl doesn't look that bad. Dump it, scoop it into a bucket of water, put it in. Next one, that one don't look that bad. Scoop
That's
it,
a good point.
pick it up, put it in. And again, with this snake, feed, say, a boa constrictor. Oh, shit, my boa constrictor didn't eat. offer it to something else. I know that was a thing, Dave. Don't pretend that wasn't a thing.
No. It's not. Oh, you think I know everything? You think I know everything going on in the community?
Yes,
I don't know shit about shit. I don't know shit about shit, buddy.
All about it.
Well, I know about irresponsible things I've done myself. I know about some things I've heard as rumors in the hobby, but the reality is, here's the thing. I believe the medical side of things,
Right.
but I don't know if they're as catastrophic as people say they are, because ball pythons are the best example. Those animals get tossed around every couple of years. People don't keep a ball python mutation for more than 10 years. If animals were all sick and being tossed in a collection, you would hear about guys going out of business because of nidovirus. I've never heard that in the community.
And again, like I said, if they're mainly or almost strictly ball python guys, if they even have like a ball python nidovirus, and you're just introducing it to more ball pythons, there potentially isn't much of an issue. It's when the nidovirus, I noticed the biggest issue was the people with the most diversity that probably had just as equally or shittier quarantine methods.
Well,
Dave,
I'll go.
do you remember that one person's collection you're at that has a lot of diversity and they're ball pythons? They had a really bad nido because they were doing the whole wheezing and hacking a lot.
Well, okay, interesting.
You have to look at this. I'm a little lost.
No, don't worry about that, Will. So that was an interesting situation, but I don't know. Here's the thing. He still has a ball python collection. It's been 8-9 years, so it wasn't that bad, was it?
He still has them. It seems like the weaker ones get like kind of run down, and then they either overcome it or then a small percent pass away. And that's the one problem with a disease like that. Like, if it's not completely overwhelming the collection, there's going to be some people that are, well, I'm going to continue breeding them and selling them with this issue. And then there's some pros that can be part of the cons of this, that some of these animals might build up some more antibodies and you might get better ones. Because, like, there are some, like, big-name ball python breeders. William mentioned 2 of them, and I've noticed that they get a lot of new genes, and the thing is right in their collection breeding everything, and everything seems to be fine. So it's like Woodstock, no condoms, just start fucking. Go nuts.
Cryptosporidium is one thing we talked about in different communities. Now, I understand that's more bacterial related, but like when it comes to a virus,
a parasite, single-celled organism parasite.
Is it a parasite?
Protozoa.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a protozoa.
So IBD was a big thing in boas. We still have boas. Nido was a big thing in carpet pythons. Ball pythons, big communities. We still have all that stuff. It's not like I don't know they're not out there, but I just don't think that the community in general cares enough to do anything extra. Does that make sense?
I
don't think.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think there's a 60 or 30-day quarantine in any collection for a new breeder male ball python before it goes in. You know what I mean?
I think a ball python breeder's quarantine is about like 30 seconds. They make sure it doesn't have mites. They think about it for a second, and then they put it right in the rack. That's their quarantine.
They just put it right in with the female, because let's face it, they want it to be breeding size. So
yeah, they're like, all right, I got this new male in.
I've seen it before.
He's
right
seen it.
The breeding.
Yeah. They don't even touch the snake. They just open the bag and squeeze it from the bag into the female's enclosure, Dave.
We're not going to even check the sex. We're just going to assume he's right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
We'll find out by the breeding behavior. We'll see if it is a male.
God. Oh, fuck.
So, you made that, can we do the big hog now?
The big hog?
Was that what we call it? Is that what we call it? A big hog?
What the fuck is this?
Well, man, if I would have done this, I would have pulled out my giant wooden one. Oh, okay. No, okay. Never mind. I couldn't have done that.
Wait. Yours is made of wood. What does it do?
It's a bottle opener.
Oh, that sounds kind of nice.
Yeah. This is hot to watch, Dave.
Yeah, I called this piece Chad.
Oh, is it?
That makes it worse.
What do you mean? Beautiful.
What you really do with it, Dave.
I just did what I did with it.
Oh, no.
What are you doing with your bottle opener over there, buddy?
I can't tell you.
Well,
It's
yeah.
top secret. We're trying
That's
to turn
fair.
this into X-rated stuff.
So, I keep on going if you guys want to keep going, but what do you guys want to talk about? Hey, what do you guys think about those drones over New Jersey?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I started getting messages from this one guy, Nate, about it, and I was like oblivious. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about. But yeah, the funny thing is, like, I didn't look deeper into that one, but he kept asking me if I was getting him in Ohio, and I just said, I was like, yeah, I'm sure there's drones in Ohio. Some kid's probably flying one. I'm like, I don't know, dude. What do you want me to say? And so, yeah, I have no idea what's going on with those Jersey drones.
Okay.
Neither do I. I've heard about it, but I didn't look too much into it.
What about the Luigi guy? We can talk about him, the Luigi Mansion, Luigi Magione.
What's there to talk about that guy?
He's the one that shot that CEO.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I'm aware of who he is. He's got no connection to that company. He's just a random guy, it seems.
All right, so he's not guilty. All right.
Well, no, he's guilty. Yeah, there's a video of him killing somebody. But my point being
he's
is,
got a hoodie on. You can't really see him. It's dark. Anybody could be wearing that hoodie.
I will say this:
reasonable doubt. There's some reasonable doubt there. Very reasonable.
Well, maybe. I didn't think he looked like the first guy in the video, but I don't have any idea. I just thought the guy that initially was in that video looked old. But I'm not sure if sitting out in that freezing cold weather would change like the wrinkles in your skin and the way your hands look. That makes sense?
I think you've seen a bad picture. Like, I think the quality of a picture you see must have been bad. Because I don't think he looked old and thick, but I don't know.
I think when he was outside with the mask on.
I mean, it's probably windy and cold until you're like this.
All right, next conspiracy theory. Move on. Let's go. That was a horrible one. That one's pretty obvious to everybody.
Well, it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's more on the morals and the ethics and then his motive. So I thought that could be interesting, I guess. Not. I don't know. You want conspiracy theory stuff. The problem is I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about with these drones. Maybe you could actually but I think the drone stuff, they've already stopped talking about it. Like, they were hot on it for 2 days, and then like after a few days, everybody's just dropped it.
Yeah. Well, I think we were told everything's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know about the drone thing either. It seems like every year around this time, there's actually been drone sightings. I think over like the last 3 winters. Always around Christmas. I don't know. You want to talk about Bigfoot? There's Bigfoot sightings at the Kern River.
What, your river?
Yeah, the Kern River. If you look at Kern River Bigfoot sightings, it's there. Bill turned me on to that when I told him I was fishing there.
Okay, well, you should start fishing that area more and get your camera ready so you can film a guy in a suit walking by.
I would say, you sure it's not just you shirtless and pantsless or seeing?
Oh, buddy, trust me. If I catch a 10-pound brown trout, that is the plan, but no 10-pound brown, it's not going to happen.
Oh, come on, Dave. You know you'd be up for a good, good viral video, I'm sure.
No, I don't do viral videos, buddy.
Oh, you could be.
No,
could be all about that life.
No,
trust me, Dave.
I'm okay with
I had something good planned for you, but it failed because I wasn't able to come over and visit you in time.
Sounds hot, buddy.
No, it would have been hot. The plan was to make it hot, but it didn't happen because I wasn't able to make it out in time, and I couldn't buy custom-made underwear for you.
Timelines are everything, man. And
right.
When you miss the window, it's not cool.
I didn't have enough time.
Hey, Junior.
Mm-hmm.
Should we talk about this past year in the hobby?
Yeah, we could do a recap on 2024. We did say
do you remember anything?
It sounds interesting because it sounds like a great time to do it. We're going to the New Year's. When they drop the ball and they cover I feel like they cover stuff that happened, but I mean the reptile hobby was pretty consistent. I'd say there was definitely some changes where people complained that it wasn't 2021 and nobody was making $1 million anymore. I don't think you're going to stop hearing the complaining about that one. I feel like in another 10 years, it was nothing like the market in 2021 and 2022. They're like, when I made $5 million breeding one rack of snakes, I'm like, yeah, dude, it's not coming back. I mean, it was nice.
It wasn't that somebody made $5 million. It's that everybody had good sales. Even the people
that's
who
what
were.
I mean. It's a hyperbole. I'm not saying literally, but I'm saying
No, somebody probably made $5 million that year. I bet you somebody in the hobby gets $5. I bet you somebody made $5 million.
Somebody definitely made $5 million.
Yeah, there's always one. Who's Jeff? Jeff? No, Jeff's good for.
I didn't make $5 million. No, I didn't make $5 million. No, I didn't come close to that one.
You know who Jeff is like? Jeff is like who's the guy who does Facebook?
Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah, you're a Zuckerberg in the community. You know, even if you had money,
that's like
you
a
would
major insult. Like that, I don't even think like
just about your appearance.
Your appearance, buddy. Mark Zuckerberg likes Mark Zuckerberg.
No, your appearance, buddy. You're plain shirts, you're plain pants, you're plain shoes. We wouldn't know if you had money or not, buddy. You look so plain.
Well, Gabe said at Reps in Texas, he said that you think rich people dress nice and they have suits. And he goes, but really you find out rich people dress in the sweatpants, adventure type shirts, and dirty red Adidas.
Adam Sandler eating pickles while wearing sweatpants.
Oh yeah, Adam Sandler's one of those guys. Yeah, he's worth like $500 million, and they always have him in like oversized basketball shorts and like an Adidas shirt with like just like basic shoes. Yeah, like eating a pickle out of like a bag.
Yeah. You know what I was actually thinking about? Like the money progression. We'll wait for Junior.
I'm done sneezing.
So, well, you know, I was thinking about 90s and early 2000 money in the hobby compared to now. And what I'm trying to say is like, there's a certain stereotype that comes with a reptile keeper. Back then it was metalheads, weirdos, the outcasts. So like when you go back and look at who was like successful in the 90s and early 2000s, they all had a stereotypical look to them. There's a certain bit of like professionalism to the hobby now where like the money coming in isn't like what it used to be.
Bob Clark.
I think that is a rarity, buddy. The point being is, if you look at the other 20 guys compared to
back in the 80s and I guess 90s.
Yeah, well, you know what? Okay,
Bob
so here's the thing.
What the fuck happened?
I know. No, he's looked exactly the same this entire time. He hasn't aged. You had the metalhead kind of goofy guys or goofy people that had like a construction business that started a reptile business, while the actual herpetologists in the industry that went to college also started. So there was a merger then in the 90s.
Right.
Now it's very different. Now you don't really, people now are from all different kinds of demographics in the hobby. Pharmacists, it's not like what it used to be in the early days of the hobby.
Yeah, there's like everybody. Yeah, you're right. There's like people that are doctors. I've actually sold hognose to people that are actual doctors, physicians. Yeah, there's a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, it was more of a stereotype. There was kind of two groups in my eyes. Now, like you said, it's
stereotyping, Dave. Maybe you shouldn't do that.
Well, you said this looked Russian, buddy. Why'd you stereotype my hat before we started tonight?
Jews like for the first 5 minutes of the show.
I didn't say Jews. I said Jewish.
Oh, God damn it.
So, what do you guys want to talk about? Want to keep it going? You want to stop? What do you want to do here?
Talk a little longer. Well, we did the 2024 recap. It was good.
Did we?
And then there's more shows.
We barely covered it.
Well, that's what I feel like 2024 was like. It was barely there. Yes.
What was your surprising show of the year?
Surprising show. I don't know. Not to sound arrogant, but I really wasn't surprised by anything. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, there was kind of one. I don't want to get into it too much though, because like I don't want to mention names. But the Portland show, I got sandbagged, put in a horrible spot, and the sales weren't as good as they usually were, and my expenses were up, and I didn't do that good. Normally, I'm doing pretty good at every show. That show I didn't do that good at, but I got sandbagged hard.
That wasn't my question.
That was the answer. You like? Is there a show that surprised you? That surprised the shit out of you.
I'm glass half full, buddy. I'm in a surprising way, like an exciting way. Like you went there and you didn't think it could be as good as it was.
Well, that last one I mentioned was negatively exciting.
Salt Lake City back in the day, a few years ago, was really good for you, and I don't think you went in there thinking you were going to kill it.
No, Salt Lake was really good. Here's the thing, though. Back then, though, like, you know, back then it was only 2 years ago. But when I started doing more shows and kind of touring, there weren't as many hognose on the market. So, and they're, you know, very hot, you know, species. So generally every show you did good. Even now, generally every show is pretty good. But 2024, I didn't do any new shows. You know what I mean? So I don't think I got really surprised by anything because I'm trying to think if I added any shows this year because I want to start adding some. I want to do them like one in Texas maybe, but I did Billings, but that wasn't. You're not going to want to hear my answer. It wasn't a positive experience. Well, Billings. The one problem was the place I was staying at very nice, but the problem was is the water tank. The water stayed warm for about a minute and a half. And it was during the winter. And so the water went to about like 55 degrees. So, you know,
wonderful.
Yeah, so I'd have to like basically I'd kind of blast myself with the heat. So then I was like, all right, now I'm going to hit with freezing water. And that kind of prompted me to take quick showers. But I was surprised because I was supposed to be the only hognose breeder there. But then when a couple other people found out I was going there, 2 other hognose breeders came. And then I was once again surprised in a very negative fashion. And then, yeah, it wasn't that great. But it was a good time. I don't know if I'll go back to Billings. You know, it's in the winter too, but I don't know, Dave. I don't have any like surprising, like really. I mean, I'll tell you, here's some surprising things. Mystery boxes. Mystery boxes have been so popular, and the one we did in the summer that actually Anthony Riccardi Reptiles, he won the Swiss chocolate, and then actually Julie's here who won a pair of Het Swiss chocolates from the raffle at the end. We had so many entries. We wrote everybody's name on playing cards, and we had to get over 2 decks. But some people had multiple entries depending on how much you spent. It wasn't individual people. There wasn't like 104 people. But yeah, it's crazy. It's been a lot of fun. So I'd say that's been kind of surprising because I started the mystery boxes just as a fun thing about a year and a half ago, prompted by reps in Texas. And yeah, that's been a good one. Yes, Dave?
So one of the reasons why I think that is successful, not only because it's you doing it, is the fact that people benefit from taking a chance with you. You never short anybody on these boxes.
No, that's the one promise. And it gets aggravating when people start asking me a bunch of questions and you get to feel some people have this connotation that I'm trying to rip them off. I'll be like, listen, I don't need to rip anybody off for $400 or $500 fucking dollars. It's like I got a lot of hognose and I got a lot of nice stuff and it doesn't have cryptosis. Whatever you're buying, I'm giving you something better. You're going to be happy with it. And if you're not, you had wild expectations or you don't like that project, but that's why you give me an idea of projects you want. So I can't accidentally give you something you don't want. So you give me some ideas. So, but yeah, everybody so far has been very happy. And I've been really happy with them. And then Crystal's been a great addition to it because she's been decorating them. And every time they get more and more extravagant, you know, like we have like, I could show you one. I showed you the gingerbread house one. Let me get another one.
All right, Junior, can you elaborate a little bit more? I'm not as familiar with the mystery boxes. Like, give me a little bit of the background of them.
Let me grab this box. Let me grab this box.
Well, I heard of them through your lives, but not much in depth of them.
I could tell you, but I don't want to ruin it for them.
Right, you might fuck it up, Dave. You're high right now.
Well, no, I'm not high. Not high.
No, I mean,
not
you were
yet.
blowing that hard. You were blowing that dick pretty hard, or sucking the dick pretty hard. So.
Ducking. No,
So
I was capping it.
When you open it, you're greeted by a box that looks like a present. And then we have gel packs in there that are wrapped up like presents too. That's Crystal's work.
Shit.
And then on top of that, we have like tinsel in there for packing instead of just regular paper. And then also with the Christmas mystery boxes, you get a little suitcase, which I showed when I were talking earlier. I showed that little box that has a little miniature suitcase that comes with scarves for snakes and little hats. So you can dress up your snake if you want to. Now, if you're getting baby hognose, it doesn't work on them. You really need it for an adult hognose. But anyway, so this is just a fun theme we do. And the mystery boxes work like this. They start at $400 and go up, and they're fully customizable, meaning you can spend as much as you want. And then you just give me an idea of what kind of projects you want. And the promise is the value of the animals you get are always in excess of what the mystery box is. And then for every $400 you spend, you get an entry to win a raffle at the end, which usually the raffle snake is a very high-end snake. Like Anthony, he bought last Pomona show a mystery box. I think it was like $1,500, something like that. I can't remember. Maybe it's $1,200. And so if it was 12, he would have got 3 entries. And then if it's 1,100, we just round up. And so we do it like that. And he ended up winning the Swiss chocolate hognose, which at, the time, I'd say they're still close, but they retail value on that snake's around like $3,500, $3,700. But basically the mystery boxes start $400 and then just kind of request whether you want a male or female and then give me an idea of what kind of projects you like. Somebody did a mystery box for a trio. They're like, I want a 1.2 of this kind of project. So then I just kind of do that. And usually the animals, it depends. Every now and then I could do a crazy one. Like this one couple, they bought, and they're actually kind of like, they're on my Discord a lot. They're really fun to talk to. And they got a mystery box at the Sacramento show. And it was a $1,500 mystery box. And I told them, I'm like, this one's really good. The value of the animal in this one is actually double. And it was a Super Arctic Sable, like yearling. And even a Super Arctic Sable yearling, even with the market coming down more, it is still, easily like a $2,300, $2,400 snake, even with a price drop. So yeah, that's what I do. And it helps, us move some snakes. The one big benefit is I don't have to take any pictures. And if you're a hognose breeder, a reptile breeder in general, I feel like if you've been a reptile breeder for a long time and you're always getting pictures for people, somebody not asking for pictures, you're almost willing to come drastically down on the price or give them something even better just for the lack of the fucking hassle because you have to take photos all fucking day. People, I remember my friend Andrew, now I'm getting sidetracked, but Andrew was like, he goes, when I first met you, I never understood why it was so hard to get pictures from you of leopard geckos. And he goes, it really perplexed me. And he goes, and then I started selling leopard geckos. And he goes, within a few months, he's like, I get it now. And I was like, yeah, that's only after a few months.
People start asking for unreasonable photos.
Yeah, or they ask and then they don't buy anything. And then people are like, well, that's part of sales. You don't get every sale. And it's like, yeah, but here's the thing with reptiles. It's a, living, organism. If you really want it, you already should be pretty much ready to pull the trigger. This isn't like buying like an Apple Watch or a fucking scooter. It's like, hey, I'm looking for this type of male or female. And, generally these pictures should just kind of be like, not an afterthought, but just kind of like something that, kind of just fulfills it. Like, okay, I've seen it. I do like the way it looks. But because there's people that ask me for pictures and I'm like, the snake they're asking for a picture of, the photo of the snake will have no bearing on whether they buy it or not, unless they make up that decision on their own, because it's like, this is a particular trait that is a multi-gene combo and there's no polygenics in it. They might vary. Let's say a leucistic, for example. It's like, all right, my leucistic is white. It doesn't have bug eyes or anything like that. I already know this. And so when you get the picture, it's like, if you're not saying I'm going to buy it, you weren't going to buy it without the picture either.
So I think the real reason for that is, from the customer side, is that a lot of companies use stock photos. And some people just want to make sure that what they're getting is what they're getting. And I think that's common in the hobby right now.
I understand it. And here's the thing. It's a lot of it. Well, the thing is not saying like I should be treated any different. But if you look at me, it was like, almost 500 reviews. And then, it's like a $500 snake. And I get it. I'm not trying to, but here's the thing. I'm just complaining, really. That's all it is. It's annoying to take fucking photos. That's all it is.
Well, what always gets me is, so like when I do a species or breed of species that are all uniformed, like water pythons, they all look the exact same. So I take one photo and I tell them, I go, it looks just like this other one. They're the exact same thing. I go, there's no reason for me to pull out the camera because you're not going to get any variation. It's just a patternless snake with an orange belly. That's
But-
all you get.
But I'd still like to see the one I'm getting, William. I still would
Yeah.
like to see the one I'm getting.
Well, then they start asking for asshole pictures, eyeball pictures. Then they
Oh,
start asking
God.
for all these unruly.
Was this an
pictures and
OnlyFans,
stuff.
buddy? I've never heard of any of this
Yeah, you've
before.
never heard of this? Oh man, yeah, you're
Yeah,
missing out.
I've never had anybody ask for an asshole picture.
My worst ones
you're
I ever
missing
worked
out.
with for getting pictures were Brazilian rainbow boas. People would
Oh.
want to see the parents to see how red the parents were. They wanted a male and a female. And then they'd want pictures, you know, of if they had any siblings from previous seasons that were older. And then they'd want more pictures of the babies. And this is over like a $180 snake. And it's like, again, I get it, or a $250 snake, whatever. But, you know, the thing is, like, it's obviously we do this because we love it. But there's certain things, obviously, that are going to drive you a little nuts, man. And that is one thing that just drove me nuts. The Brazilian rainbow bow. This one guy, Dave, you would have liked it. This stuff would have been great to have on, you know, to record it. This dude would call me up and kept asking me for pictures of the parents and other stuff. And I was taking some, I don't even know what I did. I don't even know if I ended up taking the pictures. He ended up calling me like a couple days later or the next day, whatever it was. This was a long time ago. And I'm not kidding you or exaggerating. He was drunk at a bar asking about the Brazilian rainbow boas and more. And dude, I was so fucking aggravated. And this guy was one of these people asking for pictures. And I should have just told him, I'm like, did you ask for pictures of the alcohol you're drinking? I was like, what the fuck does it? It's a red, it's going to get really red.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So this is tough love. When you average out how much you make per animal, sending one picture is not that bad, buddy. For
I know, that's the
sales
way I
and the
look
whole
at it.
sales thing.
I understand all this, but I'm just saying, taking pictures, sometimes it drives me nuts. Generally, though, if it's like, I guess maybe it doesn't. Certain things it does. Certain things it does. When it comes to, like, you know.
I think it depends on the species. Like, do you do hand pictures? I apologize for not knowing this. You do?
I do hand pics.
So
Like,
yeah, look at these fucking hands, buddy. Of course they do hand pictures.
Yeah, look at those ape hands. Yeah. Well, I was just wondering because, like, I know when you do, like, when I would do Antaresia on a flat surface or a carpet python, I mean, as soon as they touch a flat surface, they're either shooting off or they just blow up to where and then they shoot off and run off. And that's such a pain in the ass to deal with.
It is. Hognose can be like that sometimes. Generally, what I'm hoping for is that they're coiled up nicely, like how they are now. A lot of these, you could pull them out and get some pictures. And usually, the wood chip bedding, the coarse aspen sandy chip bedding, is a really good background picture for catching their colors. And I don't mind that. That's like really easy. But yeah, if they start getting flighty, and then sometimes they'll be perfectly posed next to a big fresh piece of shit, and I'm like, they do that a lot because hognose do shit pretty often. I want to tell you how many times I've had a hognose. It's coiled perfectly. It's like a awesome, you know, pose for a picture, and then there's like a fragment of a turd here and a urate right in front of it. You know,
of course, right?
Yeah, there's an eraser tool for that, buddy.
There is that eraser tool.
Do they dig their face in it too?
Sometimes, generally not too much. You know, I have had hognose do that, but it's not like a common thing. I mean, I have them in like decent enough enclosures size where they're not usually ending up in their own poop, but sometimes it can, but it's rare. I'd actually say that's pretty rare.
Okay.
So you notice how like certain communities, there's a standard for photos, and like you're talking about in hognose, it's not uncommon to see a hognose in its tub on its wooden substrate is like the standard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. If you go look at MORPH Market, I'd say there's pictures all over the place. Some people do deli cup pics, and even mine. I do deli cup on, you know, like that alpha dry, the white paper bedding, or I do enclosure, or I do them with like usually my gloves, which are blue. I take and I do like certain backgrounds because certain snakes, you know, you have to take pictures from certain angles and everything. And also, I should probably mention, most of the pictures I take of hognose, those actually don't bother me. Every time I'm thinking about a time where it's like a picture is like aggravating the fuck out of me, it's always a leopard gecko. Pretty much every time it's a leopard gecko.
Yeah. Boas, you know, you see a lot of green and a lot of blue backgrounds, I feel. It makes the color pop. I was trying to come up with some kind of idea of like, it sounds kind of stupid. So a rotating pedestal, with different acrylic mounts on top for different species. Some things with pillars, some things that like it keeps them enclosed in a little box. But how customers always ask for more pictures. If we could upload a video on Morph Market of like a rotating animal, there's really no reason for anybody to ask for a picture ever again.
Right. Well, you can do that. You can take videos and stuff for them. You just got to do it.
Yeah, you can post video. I think it's like linked to YouTube, isn't it? The videos.
Oh, is it? Oh, maybe.
Maybe. I don't think it is. I think he's just using that red arrow like YouTube. I don't think it's linked to YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But I know you know whose method I really like is Nick Mutton's. He has now. I don't know exactly what he does, but I think it has to do with a dish that he has at an angle, and the dish comes down at just enough of an angle so you don't get much shadowing, and then it's just deep enough to where, especially with Antaresia and carpet pythons, they like to have their bodies touching something. When you put them in something, they just immediately want to expand their bodies out till they touch something. And that's what the dish gives them, is that security of the side. Otherwise, then they shoot out and try to get away from you. So he had this unique little dish setup he has where he takes a picture of all his carpet pythons and stuff. It was pretty interesting setup compared to most people who put them on flat surfaces and then they want to shoot out. I think the only person who does any kind of weird or different photos is like Starkey would use coat hangers or some kind of like actual PVC or something, or plastic hangers that let the snake sit on to actually hang on to. But I don't want to have to pull them off of it. That's my only thing.
No, I get that. Well, I think certain people have certain backgrounds that they use that become common where like you see the background, you know it has something to do with the breeder. But yeah, kind of like what I was saying before, like different communities have different standards on how you present your animals and it be okay. What's okay in some communities isn't okay in other communities.
I don't know. I think most things seem pretty acceptable. I don't know too many no photos. Maybe dick pics or something like your kind of photos, Dave, maybe.
Well, no, I don't. I've never taken that picture ever. Maybe twice. But no, I mean, if you have a ball python, are you always taking a picture in the bin, or are you taking it out and you put it on a tabletop, or you put it on a, like certain species that aren't like unreasonable, that aren't going to be flighty, get better presentation in the pictures you post of them.
Right. Well, I mean, ball pythons, I've seen, even the big guys, I've seen the gamut of all sorts of hand pictures, table pictures, tub picture. I think ball pythons, I've seen pretty much all. And I mean, from the bigger ball python guys, not just everyone, including the small people. Ball pythons seem pretty flexible with it. And they're the easiest snake to take a picture of. They just sit there and the only thing you got to worry about is when they keep wanting to hide their heads and you got to keep fighting the little heads out of the coils of their body. That's about the only thing. I think the only thing that might be easier is how are boas? Are boas pretty standoffish? Do they sit there and pose, or do they shoot off and
boas
more flighty?
Do better if they have something to hold on to. They don't like a flat surface. Put on a flat surface, they're going to kind of like elongate. If you give them something they can hold on to, I think it's okay. But no, that's one that needs special treatment. You can't get through pictures very fast with boa constrictors.
I'd say the one thing with pictures too, it really depends on like the color mutation or the color of the species you're taking pictures of, because certain backgrounds work better. And it's like always like natural light pictures are like generally the best. So like certain things are tough to photograph, like lavender western hognose. They could be a tough one to capture the colors on, and those ones are one that generally do better outside or sometimes on like this wood chip background. I feel like as long as your pictures are clean and the animal's really visible, it's not blurry pics, it represents the colors really well, and it's a cool pose, I think that's all you really need. Doesn't matter if it's like in somebody's hand, wall in the background, or in an enclosure, just as long as I have seen some pictures where it's like it's on newspaper and the newspaper's wet, and it's like yeah, it's not the best picture.
Yes.
What's your most difficult species, Dave? The photo, the boas?
Corn snakes.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck corn snake babies, man. They you really can't keep them calm. I mean, honestly, you really need to just take a picture of them in a deli cup or in the container. Anytime I've tried to stage a baby corn snake or a younger corn snake, unruly. Couldn't do it.
That sounds horrible, especially with the price of some corn snakes. Oh God.
Well, I don't take pictures of those.
I would say I could see how the stock photos would be handy then.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah.
You guys want to keep going? Or you want to call it?
We're at like 3 hours. I'd like to talk more, but we could call it. I mean, we could always.
Well, what do you want to talk about? Make it sound interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it's like, well, it's funny. Sometimes you can bring up a topic, it doesn't seem interesting, and it can turn interesting. You know, trying to think. We talked about the 2024 recap. You guys foresee
For like 2 minutes.
Yeah, we got it. How's 2025 looking? How's the outlook for 2025? I think it's going to be a lot like 2024.
I think it's going to feel a lot like 2024.
I think it's going to feel a lot like that. Except I'm slowly getting older. I don't like that.
Yeah.
When are you going to turn 40?
3 years.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
you got it, man.
How old are you, Jeff?
37.
He's old.
I thought he was just a couple years older than me.
How old are you,
No.
William?
32.
Okay. Yeah, I look kind of like, sometimes people think I look, sometimes I guess it depends on which way you're looking at me, but I probably look definitely a little young for my age. I don't go out in the sun very.
I'd look like a baby, so I get
Yeah,
that.
shaving helps, and then staying out of the sun. Never go into sun. I pretty much do that. I rarely go out there.
I'm Asian. I go from red right back to white. There's no tan.
Really?
Hey.
What percent of Asian are you?
What percentage? I'm only like a quarter. Yeah. It's
Okay.
What? Are you talking dick size or percentage wise? Come on now, Dave.
Well, I mean, quarter's a quarter, buddy.
Oh.
What type of what Asian ethnicity? I was about to say what type. It sounds pretty bad the way I'm phrasing it.
Southeast Asian? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Japanese.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we don't have to get there yet, but I think our wrap-up question should all be a question for everybody that's a prediction for the new year. As in, we'll come back a year from now, and we'll see if anybody got it right.
What are we predicting, though? Like, who
Well,
gets
everybody gets the... All three of us get our own prediction that we get to ask the other two guys. We'll answer the question.
Yeah, but what are we like, asking them to predict?
Oh, man. We could do a death pool.
All right.
You know, predict who we think is going to die in the hobby. We could predict I know, right?
That's really dark.
We could predict a species that's going to like flourish this year that's been kind of on the back burner. I don't know, man. I guess you got to think about your own question.
Okay.
Yeah, don't go with the death thing though. I didn't mean that.
All right, I got one for you, Dave. The new series, whether it's on Netflix or HBO, which then only 30 people will see it. The one that's supposed to be regarded as the Tiger King version for the reptile community. Don't know what the hell they're calling it yet. They'll probably go with something lame like Lizard King or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we look at his previous titles? You had Chimp Crazy, and then you had Tiger King, but that's kind of based on what the main character is.
Yeah.
The one was Chimp Crazy.
This new
so
series,
Crutchfield. What do you think about Crutchfield? Like,
you think he's gonna die?
No. Like title wise, the main character, the title reflects on them. Chimp Crazy, she was Chimp Crazy. Tiger King, guy was a baller, buddy. Like
Snake King.
No, they wouldn't do anything that cheesy. There's got to be something about Crutchfield's personality that'll be in the
they do actually
title.
Snake King. Yeah, they don't do anything that cheesy. I sure hope they roll it out as like Snake King. People are like, oh, I can't wait for this one.
Snakes on a plane because he was known for fucking smuggling. So real snake. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
I like that meme. But I don't think that's what that is.
How about snakes in the pants? Like ants in the pants, but since he had to smuggle, snakes in the pants. Trouser snakes. That was like if Dave was naming the series.
Oh, no. I'm going to come up with something good. I can't think of it. You guys are going with like stereotypical names. You're not thinking about the main character. Think about Crutchfield. You got to think about his history.
He was a smuggler. He was
Okay.
he was known for
Yeah,
it.
but the dude too. They're advertising this towards like everybody, so they probably are gonna pick something cheesy and
Alright.
something simple.
Smugglers are good, so I could see smuggler being in the title, but you know what else is in there?
He was on.
Is it going to be reptilian? Is it going to be scale smuggling? Like, what do you think? No, getting too
Scales in the
deep with it.
pants. I already said.
Okay, so Juju said scales in the pants.
That's not.
I'm
my
going to go.
prediction.
No, that was your. You said it 9 times. You said it 9 times. That's. I'm going to go with scale smuggler. I'm going to go with scale smuggler.
That sounds the worst. It doesn't. There's no alliteration or flow there. They don't even like. It doesn't even flow at all. This is like the worst. Like,
well,
you might as well
that's
like.
because I'm drooling while saying it. I'm drooling over the.
Peter Griffin would throw out there. It's like it's gonna be like Snake King, and then it's gonna be like Tom Crutchfield all sweaty in his room, holding pygmy rattlers and having like a reticulated python, and then they're gonna make everything sound horrible.
Hey, time out. William, what was your idea?
I think it just might be snakes on a plane or something.
God damn it, man. That's not what it's going to be.
I think William's pretty close. He's pretty close.
Ah. Hey, well, so you got, what was yours again?
I don't know. It's like Snake King.
Yeah, you went Snake King. Okay. And I went Scale Smuggler.
All right.
No.
All right, well, we'll see.
Snakes on a plane. We'll stay.
What's your prediction of this series? What impact is it? What kind of impact do you expect it to have on the reptile community? So we could go back on this in 2025 and see this series that came out. What kind of impact do you think it's going to have?
The venomous will be the most impacted. How about that?
Because of Jeff Leibowitz?
I don't know if that's his name. I don't even know if he's in this.
He's supposed to be partially in it, unless that's a different one. Jeff Leibowitz, man, that guy's just all disheveled looking. He looks like he would get bit by a venomous if he's going to handle one. His glasses aren't even straight half the time.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Are we talking about the Taipan guy?
Yeah, the Taipan.
Yeah. Who were you talking about?
Is that his name?
Yeah,
I never knew his name. Okay. Well, so in that Dylan's podcast, he does have a video of him where like he's in the hospital and he's all like, I got it on film, blah, 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 blah. He did say something about a Netflix documentary buying that, but that could mean anything.
Oh yeah, that guy is kind of like a bullshitter. It seems like maybe it's not happening. All right, let's like forget about him. He's all like sweaty and disheveled in his apartment, holding a rattlesnake.
Well,
doesn't matter.
He could sell the video that'll be a 20-second clip of a guy getting bit in the overall documentary. But what's that worth?
Not much. It's just like his gravelly voice. He's like, I got this Taipan. Look, he's really and that's it. And I bite him. And then he's like, it cuts out. It's not even a good venomous bite video. It's like a baby Taipan. It's equivalent. If I showed it to somebody that knows nothing about snakes, it would look like them equivalent to like a baby garter snake essentially bite. Or let's say a little bigger than that, a juvenile garter snake biting somebody. It's not impressive.
Right.
All right, how about this?
It's how it's narrated, I think, that'll make the difference.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the person who's narrating that's going to make it sound way more intense. And, well, it is intense, so.
Okay. Whose voice could they afford for this? What are we talking? What do you want that vibe to be?
Ooh, I don't know. They
Is
might
this
get
like
David Attenborough. No,
you think Edinburgh, buddy?
No.
I mean,
there's nothing. He's too. I don't know. He's not the right tone for that. You'd have to go with someone.
I think any documentary could be his last,
Samuel
and if that was his last one, man, I like Samuel L. Jackson. I think that's solid.
What about AI generated? Just an AI generated one, because this seems like it's gonna be low budget.
You could, I guess, yeah.
Why do you think it's gonna be low budget?
Because it's gonna be low budget. It's just some film crew following around some reptile breeders in Florida, and they're like, yeah, you smuggle stuff like back in the 90s. It's like, what are you gonna do, a reenactment? It's like, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be that it's gonna be that intense. I
don't think the characters are gonna be nearly as unique as they were in Tiger King, and I think that's gonna be a problem.
Right. Like, yeah, Tiger King, the guy was trying to kill somebody. You know, he's like
Yeah.
in the process during the whole documentary, he's trying to kill his lady, and then everybody's like an inbred hillbilly. And I'm not saying that you can't find that in Florida around the reptile people. That is actually not a hard ask, but you need the years of like filming this. And I don't know how much time they put into it.
Yeah,
So
it's hard to say too, because what are they going to target too? Are they going to target like the way we were keeping stuff, like say back in 15 years ago, if you catch my drift? I don't know if I need to be saying names about it, but let's say keeping was a lot different. Burmese pythons in a 4-foot freedom breeder tub.
I don't think it's
like
going to be about the
or
past.
something like that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be.
Well, it's going to be about the past. What Tommy do for the last 50, 60
yeah,
years.
the smuggling's pretty much over. I would like to be in the documentary because I'm like, your guys' documentary is great. You're about 25 years late for it. Wonderful.
Right.
You can talk about smuggling back in the 90s when I was like 8 years old. That's how fucking old this is. And I was like, by the way, all the most invasive stuff that does the most damage is all insects and fucking plants, but that's not interesting. So you're going to talk about like a rattlesnake. You're going to talk about some elapids. Yes, Dave?
So think about experience you have in your everyday life over the last 10 years where you tell somebody who's not a reptile guy, you don't know that you're a reptile guy, and the very first thing they bring up is Burmese pythons in the Everglades.
They do. They bring that one up a lot, yeah.
So whatever this documentary is, I'm sure Tiger King, anytime you ever talk to anybody about a tiger who's a tiger keeper after Tiger King, there's a Tiger King reference that'll be made by the person who doesn't understand. So if this documentary is good enough, people will probably focus on this documentary the next 10 years over Burmese pythons on the Everglades that they saw on social media.
I think
you see what I mean? Like,
I think
there'll be an
forget
impact
about this documentary in like 4 months. I think in 4 months, people will watch it.
I think it's wishful thinking, buddy. I think it's wishful thinking.
No, because tigers is like a lot more interesting because here's the thing. That was a murder case, and then it's these big cats, and then everybody was like insane. Like the one guy was like supposed to do life in prison because him and his buddies like killed a DEA agent. This other lady supposedly killed her husband.
He's Mario's in the documentary also.
Yeah, see, they need to do that. They need to do that because like otherwise it'll be like, yeah, this guy smuggled stuff 30 years ago. Like, I put lizards in a suitcase.
What was? I never watched that Chim Crazy. Was Chim Crazy like that?
No, nobody watched it because nobody cares.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it as soon as we're done now.
Yeah, I kind of.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
Yeah, we should all watch it tonight. Let's all watch it tonight.
Yeah, then we'll give our reviews on it.
Yeah, I'm literally gonna put it on as soon as this podcast is over.
I'll watch it with Crystal, and I'll just roll my eyes the whole time.
Right.
Maybe it's good.
I feel like the Everglades thing, they're going to do a lot of comparison. I think they're going to do a lot of comparison to a lot of the recent reticulated pythons eating people, and they're going to equate it to the Everglades, how it can happen in the Everglades or something like that.
I mean, a little kid could die someday.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if a little kid is walking alone in the Everglades, if a little kid's walking alone in the Everglades in a tall, grassy, marshy field by himself, and yeah, it is possible, but the kid also shouldn't be there.
That's going to get eaten. Maybe a Jeff size man, but not a Dave or Will size man. How big are you?
I'm 100. I'm 165 pounds. I'm not that easy to eat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, you're a little bigger than I thought. I thought you were smaller.
No. Last time you see me, I was extremely sick, and I was like 140 some pounds. So yeah, I was definitely smaller.
Yeah, you were definitely Burmese food at that point.
Yeah, I mean, or a really big retic probably could have. Yeah, I mean, you need one. I don't know. I seen a 26-foot retic in person, and I wasn't that impressed, honestly. I was expecting it to look larger. I'm like, oh, this thing looks like an obese pile of slop. You know, this thing's ass was huge. I was like, this retic, it's cool, but I was like, I feel bad for it, and I was unimpressed because I'm like, well, it should be bigger for how long it is and how obese it is. This thing's ass was horrible. It's actually the one they got from Bob Clark, and then ended up dying a few years later. They paid him like tons of money.
Of course.
It was in the Columbus Zoo. This was a long time ago. It was like probably 15 years ago. That thing had an ass, dude. It looks like it constantly had a shit.
That was I held one of those giant retics at the first Pomona show I went to forever ago, and Jay Brewery was there, and this thing was like working its way over my body, and that ass just like it had a big shit in it, and I had like a 36-hour drive home, and I was like, I don't want this anymore, man. I thought once it
Jay
got up there,
Brewer's
just
retics,
free.
man. Jay Brewer's retics are insane because, like, yeah, some of them have that fat. You can see they're collecting all along their sides and their lower end.
Yeah.
Did you see that, guys? Wow, look at this obese retic. It's huge. And it's like, dude, it's like the thing's gonna die in probably the next 5 years because you won't. I don't know, what is he feeding them? Just like giant, like Flemish rabbits constantly? What does he feed them?
And he's probably feeding the rabbits constantly. I think that's the problem. That's the same issue zoos have with big constrictors, is they don't fast a lot of their pythons and boas. They just continuously feed them. That's why you get a lot of those flaccid, flabby snakes. I mean,
yeah, they are. They're like flaccid. Like this thing is like poses very little threat to a human. Now the wild ones, like a big, lanky, strong, old retic or a berm, you know, and if you're like brushing by its face, yeah, I could see that thing wanting to grab your legs and wrap you up.
Right.
Oh man, I seen this one, William. You may have even heard about it a long time ago, and I remember it was like on the, I don't know, it was on TV. I don't even want to say what channel it was because I don't even remember. But some guy, he was drunk, and I think he took Valium too, and he went to hold his 14-foot berm, and he had a man-made like cage, custom cage. I don't know why the fuck I said man-made. I mean, it is. But anyway, custom-made cage. I was like, all wood frame and screen, and he had his door, and that was his only access door, and he had feed the berm through it. Yeah, and the berm grabbed him by the leg, pulled him in, and constricted him because, you know, it was a feeding response. Yeah. And then, yeah, he died. I mean, obviously, a 14-foot berm wasn't able to eat like a 200-pound guy, but, you know, it did the thing. And then afterwards, it probably tried poking around. Oh, I can't eat this, and then left his body.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I heard of that one. Yeah. You hear about it every so often. Like, there was another one of like a circus and a guy. It might have been somewhere in Australia, but it was like a footage of a guy holding an olive python, a decent sized olive python by its neck, squeezing it, and then taking the back end of the snake and throwing it around his neck like a scarf. And then you just see him fall over. No one's rushing to the stage to save him. And then you start seeing the compulsing and all that, and you go, oh God, there we go. And then by the time he stopped, and then you're like, oh, then people come in to pull the snake off of him.
Yeah. That's not an old video. That's kind of a recent video, right?
I thought it was a pretty what's old to you? Maybe
5, 6 years?
Maybe? Okay, well,
yeah.
Okay, not that old. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember that video. Yeah, everything looked pretty chill, and then he just like, whoop.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, clearly, you're squeezing the head of the snake like a predator, and then you're throwing its body, looping it around your neck like a scarf, and you don't think something bad's gonna happen.
Oh, hey guys, I had this idea. Next time we're all at a show, we should see if there's one of those churches in the area that do the snake worshiping. We should all go Sunday morning before the show.
Oh, God.
I think those are all in the Bible Belt. I don't think there's many of those.
We should find out where they're at, and we should plan a show around it.
We should just go there and take the snakes.
No, I just want to be part of it. We don't want to fuck anything up. We just want to be there.
Dave, you just want to hold a cottonmouth. Stop it. Or a copper.
Not even a little bit, buddy. Not even a little bit.
Did.
Dave's already had a copperhead experience.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah. I saw.
It's awful. It wasn't even awful, but it was awful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
All right, guys. How many people are still watching?
24 currently.
Okay, so about average.
Yeah, it was up just a bit ago. It was at 30, just like 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. It goes up and down.
Lost them?
Now it's 26. It's the lowest it's been is like 23, and it's been fluctuating up to like the mid 30s.
Okay.
Well, you
do we do like a Q&A, or what do we do here?
I mean, if anybody wants to ask any questions, they can. Dave, I still want you to answer what's your
impact.
prediction? What's your prediction? What the Snake King, the new documentary?
Oh, I told you, the venomous community. Things will change in the venomous community. More permits, more regulations, more overstate travel. Overstate travel, I think, is gonna be the big thing. Well, here's the biggest fear about the big constrictor thing. I think there might be some trickle, but like, in this whole smuggling thing, based on the characters in this documentary, I don't think we have to worry about anything in the big constrictors.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but like the fact that it's talking more smuggling, I know some of the free handling venomous guys are going to be on there. I just feel like that community is going to take the biggest hurt.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I guess they can't really go after a lot of our. Yeah, I could see import stuff getting in trouble then. Okay.
There's not much. Like, there's very little imports though anymore. I feel like importation is pretty rare, and then even the smuggling anymore, and even the smuggling that like if I do hear it through word of mouth, it's not even like it's like what I would consider like the most mild form of smuggling. It's like a legal captive born species, but it's not legally allowed to be transported. So it's like one of those ones that's like, oh, it's not even from the wild. It's not like a rare endangered animal. It's a captive born one that came from somebody's stock. And
can I say one thing?
Sure.
Borneo earless water monitors.
Yeah.
What about them being smuggled?
Well, those essentially didn't exist. Then they exist through deforestation, and then they were all smuggled.
Yeah, they smuggled. Well, the funny thing is, I'm not an expert on this, and it's possible that it's like exaggerated information, but following them being smuggled and introduced into herpetoculture, there was actually one person that showed there was sightings at one point for Borneo earless water monitors. So Borneo earless water monitors, there are some legal individuals, but obviously the ones that seem to, end up in the community, they all ended up from smuggled animals. And here's the thing is like, you don't want to justify this stuff, and then people make you look bad for that too. But there was articles years after that showing that, hey, these things aren't as dangerous as we thought they were. They're mostly underground. And here there's like during some deforestation, they did a surveying and they found hundreds of them on this acreage. And here's the thing. And they're deforesting their habitat. Meanwhile, if somebody took 7 or 8 from this habitat they're destroying, that is technically smuggling, and those are illegal. But to leave them there and to be excavated and killed is completely legal because somebody bought that land and property and they got the clearance to do so. So, is there any negative impact on taking Borneo earless water monitors out of the wild? These few from an area where it ends up there's actually quite a few of them. Obviously that's open to interpretation, and anybody, you don't want to speak in absolutes, but I'd say from the outward appearance, absolutely not. But I'm also not condoning illegal, activity. But at the same time, I mean, there is such little, I'd say jurisdiction and I don't know, legal, counsel for for taking animals from the wild. They're like a lot of these animals you don't even have a chance. There's just like a blanket law, like you can't take any, like Australia, you're not allowed to export anything. It's just a blanket law. And the thing is, it's just because it's such a small niche thing, it's not enough for anybody to care about. Now, if 80% of the population wanted to keep and breed reptiles and then be involved in conservation as well as keeping in herpetoculture, there would be laws regarding all of this stuff. I mean, maybe now look at cats and dogs, and cats are allowed to do anything. But that's different. And there's, it's very different.
I have a question. How about this? Do you think over the years, Australia will be more lenient about letting animals in and out? Or do you think the world would become more restrictive about animals in and out?
I'd say restrictive. I don't know if you'd agree with, I want to get your input too on this one, William. And I think that's just because I kind of snap answered that one because that's the government's overall direction. More and more legislation and more strictness on everything.
I think it's just easier to do it too, honestly. The way I look at it though too, I'm just like, we have a pretty good reference from ball pythons. I mean, you want to fix last number I heard, and I'm sure it could be a figment, but even if it's half, it's ridiculous. But I heard something like 800 shingleback skinks are smuggled out of Australia to Japan or something every year. And it's like, how many people are smuggling wild ball pythons out? if you find a sustainable way to either let captive bred or charge out the wazoo for a small group of wild-caught animals, which I know there are parts of Australia that do allow certain licensed individuals to collect wild-type animals. And if you just, there's always a sustainable way they could be doing things. It's just convincing them we're worthwhile doing it for. And I wonder if the hobby could ever change that perspective. Could we prove that we could do more for, say, conservation than a zoo or biologist can? Because we reach a lot more normal people than zoos and biologists can, as far as making a more of an emotional connection than a zoo or biologist can, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, that was a lot of rambling. I don't know if any of that.
No, I get that. The one problem is, I think like almost a lot of stuff, William, like I think you agree, is like a lot of stuff is gate kept. It's like that guy that wanted to restore reefs, and they basically wouldn't allow them, and they said you have to get a PhD first. Like go to school, get a PhD, and then you can do this. And it's like anybody can learn to do anything. And a lot of times the people that are doing the most impact are people who are taking matters in their own hands and are not going through this, you know, gate-kept system of like, hey, you have to do this and this first. Not saying that there isn't a place for academics. Obviously, academics categorize and organize things really well, but I do think it's sometimes used against progress.
Well, how about this? So when do you think captive bred breeding would also be part of replenishing a population that's depleted?
Never.
Probably never, as long as it's like a zoo or an academic place.
Even zoos, man, the steps you got to go through to reintroduce something is such a pain in the ass. There's a reason why it's rarely ever done, you know, on purpose anyways. Obviously, accidental releases are one thing, but there's reasons why it's a real pain in the ass to do it, because you just don't know if that population you're getting ready to release can handle, you know, because they get used to in a captive environment and then releasing them into the wild. It's such a big process. There's a reason why even relocating nuisance reptiles can be a pain in the ass, because a lot of times you relocate a adult animal, they don't acclimate well to a new environment. They did it with a scrub python, where it kept going back to a lady's house that had small children, and obviously they wanted it taken away so it wouldn't harm the small children. Well, they did it like 3 times, and each one of those times the scrub python kept coming back and back. It would keep coming back to the territory it was familiar with, and then eventually it ended up starving to death because it was just kept getting taken back. And there's ways they can do it. They have systems where they can acclimate an animal to a different environment, but it's more of a hassle. And I don't ever see captive, like us as I remember it used to be an old saying back in the days, what was it? Conservation through captive propagation. But I think that's like an old school way of thinking about it, because that shit will just never happen for us captive people. But I think the impact we can have on the normal day-to-day worker that doesn't give a shit about snakes, like I can tell you firsthand, my mother was terrified of snakes. Now she buys snakes. So I mean, you could see someone that used to go to zoos, used to go to like wildlife sanctuaries, was never convinced by professionals. It took someone who was closer to really get them over that fear. And that's what I mean, where I think that's where we can come in, and we can get more of an emotional attachment to the everyday person that zoos only typically do with the big mammalian animals like tigers, lions, bears, you know, not the small, harmless snakes. I think that's where we can step up and become a bigger voice for a lot of these.
So the problem with that there's a lot of we's that shouldn't be
we gotta work together. We have to work together.
Well, I just mean that
this is going to happen, but I'm saying if we all work together.
I'm part of that we. I like that we.
Yeah.
No, I think you're good in the we, and I think Will's good in the we. I might not be in the we. I'm just gonna
put that out. You're a little in the we, Dave. People like coming out to shows to see you, and you're like, you know, definitely out.
Imagine the 3 of us approaching people outside of the community. Who's the most approachable?
Probably
definitely
William.
No, I think Jeff.
You think me?
I'm pretty big and scary, man.
Okay. Both you guys are fine. So yeah, my point being is I'm happy in the community, but
I guess
I'm not going to branch out.
Yeah. You can't have the bug eyes, Dave. That's really off-putting to new people. Not
Seriously,
anything. It feels like you're going to steal their soul.
I know.
There
That's
was
why I really.
one. There were Dave his reps in Texas made it. He's like, "Is Dave alive?" And then he made that. What the hell did he?
Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, it was like Weekend at Trap Talk, and it was me and who was I? Or John Rice. Me and John Rice holding up Dave's body for the podcast.
Oh,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
You didn't need me there, bud. It was nice to be there just in case, but I just sat back and listened to that one. I didn't know what was going to go.
I didn't know what was going to happen with the Hognose talk.
No. Right? Always happy to be here, man. Yeah. Is that weird? Compliments weird, guys? Why you got that fucked up look on your face?
I'm not saying. I just didn't say anything. I don't have to. I don't know. I just didn't say any words. That's all.
Do you guys plan on going to the West Coast anytime soon to go herping?
I'm going to Pomona, but I don't think I'll herp when I'm out there just because of my living. Actually, you know what? The last time I went hiking and I was finding I think they were side blotch lizards. I caught like 3 of those. So it's like, it's kind of like herping like in Florida and you're trying to catch a Knowles. It's kind of like that.
Right.
It's not like real herping.
Right. I get it. I'm having a strong itch to go herping on the West Coast, like Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California. Somewhere in Arizona area, Arizona. That's what I hear. I'm getting a strong itch to do it.
Is it 28 different species of rattlesnake in Arizona? It's in the 20s.
It's pretty high.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's impressive.
Yeah. I've always wanted to herp in Arizona. I've never been in Arizona longer than a few minutes. Like I've driven through, but I've never stopped.
Man, imagine free handling all 28.
Dave would be the one to do it too.
I don't free handle shit.
That's not what we thought with the copperhead.
Well, that was just in the leaf litter. I didn't know that was there.
Oh, I thought you were picking it out of the leaf litter.
No, I was just standing there minding my own business. He got in my personal space.
Oh, Dave, stop it.
I wasn't even close to him, man. He was like a hairpin trigger buddy. Like, literally, I was standing there for like 5 or 10 seconds before anything happened.
Did you kick him on accident? Because I remember that one in Tennessee. We run over it, not with the car, but with our feet, and it kicked it. And boy, was that pissed off the whole time. I mean, he was
literally. I had my feet about shoulder width. And I was looking at a really big rock, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to squeeze my feet out like 1 more inch. And then I felt something. And then I looked, and there it was. But it was at least 6 or 7 inches away from me. It had no reason to mess with me. But that was the only time we ever saw a copperhead there. This past year, Eric was out herping. They flipped a copperhead. They said it was the meanest copperhead they've ever seen in their entire life.
Probably that one.
Well, no, it wasn't the exact same one, but maybe the ones in those areas are more aggressive because there's a lot of cottonmouths in that area. Also, a lot of traffic from people.
Right. Could be.
Yeah. If you guys aren't following, Dave got bit in the shin by a copperhead years ago.
I thought it was in the finger. I didn't know it was in the.
No, it was in the shin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and not that I'm a doctor, but I called a doctor in the community, and I took Benadryl, and I elevated it.
Well,
yeah,
I guess you got bit by the least concerning, I guess. Maybe
no, my leg swelled up. Well, I didn't go to the hospital.
Well, I know, Dave. I'm sure you didn't.
No, I remember Dave showed me the picture. He's just elevating his leg, and his leg was like really shiny and swollen looking.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like yellowish where the bite site was.
Wasn't great. Yeah, took a few bennies. I did crutches for a few days. If I started walking it, I got re-swollen up, but no problem.
No problem. Well, you're a man, Dave. You're a real man.
I'm a man. I'm a man. Yeah, sometimes. I'm scared of spiders.
What would you rather get bit by, Dave? A recluse or a copperhead again?
Man, you know what? I'm gonna have to go copperhead because recluses, you get sepsis and you kind of like melt.
Yeah,
they gotta they got to take chunks out of you. When I played hockey last month in Nashville, it was the first time in like 14 or 15 months, and my hockey bag was in the garage. When I was putting my equipment on, a brown recluse came out of it. And that's not uncommon. There's a lot of brown recluses in this house. I thought I was going to get bit that weekend.
Yeah, that's scary. That's the only thing I don't regret about not being able to visit your place, Dave, is the brown recluse.
Yeah. Sad you didn't visit, man. It'd have been nice to have you
I
for a
know.
couple days. Yeah. You could always visit whenever, though.
That's true.
You guys want to call it?
We're at 3.5.
I think 3.5's good.
I asked for your prediction, Dave. Somebody's got to ask William a prediction for 2025.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, you go first, Dave. Did you finish everything you were going to say?
I've been asked like 9 times. Junior, what was your question again? Because it was like a broad question of the year, right? Or was it reptile
related? I already asked
related?
your question and you already answered it. It was
venomous
I thought so.
Suffer?
Yeah.
The venomous community is going to suffer.
You said the venomous community will suffer the most from that documentary. I'm like, how do you think that documentary will impact the reptile community? And now we need to ask William a prediction for 2025.
Oh, God. Any prediction? Shit. I don't.
How about this? I got a question. Do you think anybody will get arrested after this documentary?
Well, yeah, I already know one person that's supposedly kind of in the process, and they probably haven't really heard about it yet. Yeah, and so I think their name will come up.
Damn, I haven't even seen anything on this.
Yeah, it's like kind of like one that people are kind of keeping a hush, and I don't think people want to talk about it because I don't know if there's like.
Hey! You've already said too much, buddy. You've said too much.
All right. Sorry.
Are they in the documentary?
I don't think so. Maybe they.
I said, is anybody from the documentary going to get arrested afterwards?
Well, who the fuck's in the documentary other than Crutchfield?
Well, this is just you taking a guess. It's just a guess. It's a yes or no, and then William.
All right. Well, anyway,
no?
ask William a question.
Yeah.
Yes or no, William? You think someone will get arrested from this documentary?
I don't think.
No.
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there another prediction for the year? Hey, how about this, Junior? What do you think the most expensive hognose will be sold for this upcoming year? Over or under 20,000? And is 20,000 high now?
Under 20,000 now. Yeah, under 20. Do you mean worldwide or just in the United States?
Worldwide, do you think anything will be over 20 this year?
No.
Or do you think? No, you think 20 is the max?
I think the highest priced hognose that will sell in the next year is probably going to be 15,000 or less.
What's one gene that'll be in it?
If it's a multi-gene combo, I'm gonna have to say it's a Swiss combo. I mean, actually, we'll see. Actually, you'll like this one. So anyway, I have a Moonbeam Sable. And so I could be eating my own words on this. It'd be funny because I have the actual information. So how could I get this fucking wrong when I'm the person? But I have a Moonbeam Sable. So it's a Super Arctic Lavender. It's a Super Arctic Lavender Sable Anaconda male. And there was one guy interested in it. And I was like, I'm not selling the fucking thing. And I was like, well, I got like 3, I think. I was like, I guess I could sell 1. I was like, but he's not going to buy it. It's like, it's too expensive. So then the guy's like, well, how much is it going to be? I'd be like, it'd be like 25,000. I was like, I'm not selling it. And then he goes, well, actually, that's what my friend, he goes, that's what I told him it'd probably be. He goes, he actually might buy it if we get an order. So there could be one, but, it has to have the right, and I don't even think that deal's even going to go through. And so I think somebody else will probably end up selling a really, it's possibly an expensive Swiss combo, maybe Jules. Maybe it could be me, and it's probably going to be around 15,000 or less. There's not too many $10,000 hognose being sold right now, just because there's more hognose volume and there's really no new traits. If there was some new mutation that was something like crazy, like a pied, then sure, 20 grand. But as of currently, I'd say nothing. Like I think there's gonna be very few hognose even over 8,000 being sold. There'll probably be some, but definitely not many over 15. I'd say like 15 is like the cap probably.
So that kind of with does it seem like hognoses are probably do you notice ball python people getting more into hognoses It seems
Yeah,
like
I
it from
do.
what I see. From all
Yeah,
the new ball python people I see, I always am seeing a lot of them building a hognose collection. I don't know, at least from what I've noticed. I was just curious if you noticed that maybe.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely a decent amount. Even in my Discord, there's a few pretty good-sized ball python breeders. You know, it could be a little concerning because the thing is, I actually had somebody ask me this question once, and it's actually a good question. And they're like, you know, not that things are going to happen as they you know, happen. So I don't really worry about other breeders. You know, there is one big mass producer that kind of hurts prices. And I pay attention a little bit to what's getting shipped and how it's affecting the market just because it's interesting to me. It's not something I'm really dwelling on, but it's something that I just need to have information on to kind of adjust or kind of realize what's happening. But some people are like, are you afraid of any hognose breeder? And not to sound cocky, I was like, there's really no hognose breeder that really makes me really worried other than these big mass producers as far as affecting the market. I was like, there's nobody that has anything in their collection. And I'm like, oh, I'm scared or anything like that. But if I was to be scared by somebody, it'd probably be a ball python breeder just due to their resilience and their ability to drop prices and produce stuff fast and to fucking turn and burn real hard. I feel like there's certain ball python people.
Do you think that mentality will float over? What, like the ball python
That's why certain ball python breeders might have that drive and mentality and hognose, and that's a tough one to contend with, and that's one that can really hurt pricing too.
Can I say why I argue with that?
Yes, Dave.
Well, my argument with that is, why go to another species to make it the same as what you're getting in the ball python community? In my opinion, when ball python guys invest their money in other species, it's because they think those markets hold for a longer period. So yeah, I don't think they're crashing like you think they are.
No, but they could be like, well, here's the thing. I mean, while I kind of agree with you, looking at it from this point, Dave, I've seen this happen many times over the last like 2 decades. People will kill their own market if they think they can get money before somebody else. Especially, I've seen people actually crash prices, not like so much intentionally, but just so they could feel like they got every sale.
Now, those guys don't have their time in the hobby is short. They burn themselves out.
There's one guy that does it. He's been around for, I'd say, 20 years, and he still does it.
Same species, though? We're talking about a hognose guy, right?
It's a hognose guy, yeah.
Fucked up the snow market one time years ago by talking before he had what he had?
I don't think it was that, but he did similar stuff with toffee and some other stuff. And the funny thing is, though, it's like, I would talk to him, and you know, these people, like, everybody likes their own ideas better than they like others. It's best to be open-minded. A lot of people aren't as open-minded as they think they are. You know, I don't think people we're not as cognitive as we'd like to think we are. But anyway, yeah, I've seen people where they take, you know, they produce a morph, they produce a ton of it, they sell the balls off of it, they sell out, and they hurt the price overall because of how many they produced, but they sold them, they made a bunch of money. And then the following season, they hardly produce any of that morph, and then people are looking for them. It's like, well, if you just kept the price up higher and you slowly sold them, you would have had some yearlings and stuff like that. Anytime I've taken something and I've panic sold it, because I have done it before, I'm not perfect, I've panic sold stuff. I'd say 90% of the time, I've regretted panic selling whatever I panic sold. Because it's like, oh, well, I could have had some of these, and then like 7 months later, somebody's offering me full price, not only one, but 2 or 3 people looking for something. You know, or if I raise one up to breeder size. So the thing is like, you know, then I see certain people that want to sell pretty much everything they produce every year, and that's just unrealistic. So the one thing I could see with people at the ball python community that could be a pro is, you know, knowing to hang on to stuff and not just like, I have to sell this stuff. Because if you're in that mindset, like I have to get rid of this and I have to sell it this time of period, you're going to have to sell it so cheap and you're going to have to hurt yourself and others and basically give yourself a bad experience.
So yeah. my one thing too is I how do the ball python people take to the polygenetics and in the hognose? The only reason I say this is, my God, they lost their mind when they even assumed that a snake could be polygenetic in ball pythons. I don't know if they're just more accepting in other species, or they just think of ball pythons being so drastically different than other species.
Just not informed. The ball python. Here's the funny thing is, ball python people are selectively line breeding constantly, just passively. They're not paying attention to it. Like I talk about a lot. like if you look at the best looking like albino ball pythons, if you're to strip that, if you're just like to not make that animal amelanistic, it'd be a bright gold, high contrast. If it's a really nice, high quality pastel, a really nice Enchi, like a really colorful one, or a really, really nice orange dream, and you took away those mutant genes, it'd be a very pretty ball python.
Right.
I remember some guy, he made like a triple het. It was like a het, ghost pied, and something. And there was other incomplete doms in the parents that he used to make this. But he ended up hitting on one that wasn't a visual at all. It was just a triple het. And he was posting it, and he was really happy with it because, man, this thing is amazing. Because it was like, and the guy kind of did seem like he didn't really like he was like shocked. But I'm like, well, yeah, of course. You had like your best Enchi orange dream, Desert Ghost or whatever it was, and you crossed it to this that had another gene, and you ended up hitting on a normal. And so, yeah, you're seeing the polygenics at work there. Because I remember people I remember somebody had like, you'd see people, Dave, like 25 years ago, people would have pastel ball pythons they asked more money for. Like, oh, this guy's line is more pretty. And it's like, well, he bred his pastels to prettier ball pythons that complemented it more. And so the more you bred these nicer pastels, you got higher quality looking pastels because you have these polygenic influence that are interacting with it in a positive way. Yeah. And then you get these brown ass pastels where somebody took a pastel and they bred it to any wild type, like, captive hatch farm raised female that they had. Like, oh, this really dark brown mahogany colored female is ready to breed. I want to make pastels. So they threw it on it and it didn't make the best looking pastels. And so these ball python people, some of them aren't even realizing that they're selectively line breeding all the time without even really noticing it. So, but I think even in hognose, there's definitely some people, like the polygenic stuff is really catching on more and more. There's some people that don't like it. I want to know what something is and what it's not, and I don't want to know lineage or anything like that.
Yeah, that sounds right for a ball python guy. But yeah. Okay, I was just genuinely curious. That was something I was always interested in because I've noticed with the ball python community, they seem very averse to, like, at least the species I've dealt with that ball python people thought about dealing with. Once you start talking about polygenetics and line breeding stuff, because it doesn't even have to be just color. You can do pattern pattern line breeding too, and stuff. And people just think, oh, it's just to make a bright snake. I go, no, you can manipulate a bunch of different looks in any snake, not just ball pythons.
There was this guy that used to go to Daytona, and he would have like ball python he had picked out, and then some people even started breeding some of those. And my cousin Thomas actually bred some, and they would breed them thinking like, hey, they had these like granites, and these granites were not even the ones that they were working with. At least I don't even know if there is like an incomplete dom or a dominant granite. But the one problem is, how some people are too. They'll like say a polygenic is a dominant when it really isn't. But anyway, I've seen people with granite ball pythons that are selectively line breeding. Like, okay, I got these two dirty granite ball pythons. They breed them together and they get more like that. It's like, all right, you're select. And some guy made them. I remember I think his name was like Cypress Creek Reptiles. He used to be big into ball pythons in the early 2000s. He had granite pastels, and they were actually really cool.
Right.
As adults, you could tell. Yeah, as adults, you're like, these are probably going to be ugly ass pastels, but as babies and juveniles, these things looked really cool because he had this really dirty effect from the granite gene interacting with the pastel. And when you see them, you're like, wow, that's really interesting because nobody else is doing that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things like you're saying. Ball pythons actually have a lot of potential. You can selectively line breed them to be reduced pattern, more speckled, more gold, more brown, dark.
Yeah, striped, spotted if you wanted to, or granite type looks.
Yeah. And if you got ones with giant spots and you find that right one, you could line breed ones with big spots. Yeah, it's like, there's a lot of possibilities.
I know people like shitting on the sunset stuff, and I'm just like, just wait till you start seeing more better looking sun. Because I'll see occasionally, you'll see sunsets. You'll get the one oddball that an adult or sub-adult that's still pretty. That animal will get bred, and it'll probably be a nobody too, or quote nobody, and they'll breed it, and then you'll start seeing prettier and prettier sunsets coming out. Because I think right now we're at the stage we just want to add a bunch of shit to it rather than making the base form pretty, rather than relying on all these other broken genes. So
what's like
just trying to,
has anybody made like a really nice orange dream sunset yet? How do those look?
They have. I don't know what it looks like now, but as a baby, it looked looked okay. I mean, I don't think it looked like anything too mind-blowing, but I don't know what it looks like as an adult. Dave might know.
Yeah. By the way, is my volume okay?
You're different, but I can hear you.
Yeah, you sounds fine.
Well,
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, my earphone died. I'm back to the basics.
You got to alternate, Dave.
So the sunset thing's tough, in all honesty. I've seen some sunset stuff recently I didn't like, but you guys talking about line breeding and ball pythons, these things from the past with the pastels, maybe having some granite in it. Man, I don't really know of any project where there's been any legitimate line breeding. I think maybe there's more like, I always talk about how there used to be the lemon pastel and the Graziani pastel. I always thought the Grazianis were darker. I always thought the lemons were more vibrant. They were both pastels. It was marketing.
Well,
but the title made me think otherwise.
Maybe it's just a wordplay. You have lemon in your mind, so you're automatically thinking yellow and lighter.
Well, apparently there was some type of line breeding going on, because didn't you hear about the DG situation? How the A and B are a different trait, but it was connected with the C. One of them, I don't know if it was A or B. So apparently it was a trait from some of the original stock that kept going on, because apparently someone liked whatever those looked like in those desert ghosts. So they kept going further and further, and now we have them for today. I don't know whatever those looks are, but that would be essentially a polygenetic.
Junior remembers this.
I think that one's more presumed, and they're trying to explain why there's three separate alleles on different loci that are popping up every time they sequence the genome of desert ghosts. So I'll give you a little background on that one, because I followed that one not closely, but a little bit. When they said DG was polygenic, and I've selectively line bred stuff for a long time. I've been selectively line breeding from the time I was in my early teens. I know quite a bit about polygenics. I'm not like an expert, but hands-on experience, I have more than probably 99.9% of people that work with polygenics, stuff, whether it's your geneticist or not. I've selectively line bred animals for a long time. When they said that, I was like, there's no way. I was like, desert ghost's not polygenic. I was like, it's too sharp of a reaction. It has too much of a massive impact, and there's no spectrum to it, and the way it interacts with other genes. And the only time you're hearing any of these oddball cases where a DG to DG didn't make a DG is there's a bunch of other traits there as well. But the thing is, they explained it as a polygenic because when they sequence the genome and they try to find that abnormal allele that commonly pops up, like let's say you take the genome of 1,000 albino ball pythons. When they look at that genome, there's going to be a spike in one area that they all have in common. Now, with Desert Ghost, they had 3 all in common, and they were all on separate loci. And so that led them to believe it's polygenic. They later it came out, and I think I talked to Warren Booth a little bit in person with Dave, because Dave's like, tell Warren everything you told me. Because I explained at the time why it's like, there's no way this thing could be polygenic. It's a recessive. I even did a live about it too. Not too many people joined. It was mostly hognose people. It's like 30 people. But anyway, the only thing is, it's like, well, this is interesting. How do you get spikes on separate loci? So they're on separate chromosomes and they're following each other around. So that would indicate that this is part of the gene or familiar with it. And so I read about something that's indirect linkage. Now, alleles, when they are on chromosomes, the funny thing is there can be an allele right here on a strand, a chromosome strand, and this allele could code for, let's say, pattern. And right next to it could be an allele that could actually code for nose shape. There's not a bunch of codes and series. It means they have a similarity. So the thing is, though, when alleles are passed back and forth during meiosis, from everything I understood, it almost seems chaotic and unorganized, but there is a natural order to it. But it doesn't look organized how a human would organize things, but it organizes nonetheless. So where the reason it could explain the 3 separate loci Because the thing is, it's like, well, you'd have to explain how the three separate loci are interacting with each other and how one could be heterozygous at one point and how it could make a visual with a heterozygous at another point. That also doesn't make sense from what they're saying. So I'd say that the thing that would make the most sense is indirect linkage, where there's sometimes alleles that code for certain things that are likely to follow other things, but they might not necessarily be close. Because typically linkage is alleles a lot of times are actually inherited in packets. So ones like next to each other get inherited a lot. Indirect, they're on separate chromosomes or on separate, just a separate loci. It could be on the same chromosome, distant, but in this case, it's 3 separate chromosomes. But yeah, it is an interesting one because I feel like the explanations they've given weren't really satisfying. Right. And it's like, well, how are you telling me this one could be heterozygous at this point and heterozygous at this point, and it's making a visual? They're not coding for the same thing on the same loci. Right. And then some of these DGs, they showed that they had a high influx of being just on the C loci. So it seems like that is the actual real DG.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard the C is the
actual one.
They said the A and the B are potentially different traits, but it was traits that were passed on based. And this is
that'd be the indirect linkage. Go ahead.
And I think I can definitely see it because I remember back in the day, you saw this. You could actually watch a video of this on Dave Palumbo when he did Pete Cole's Place. It was back whenever it was just mass produce a bunch of stuff. Well, they would cherry pick looks they liked that they thought would be good for the pet trade. Like Pete Cole, like he was selectively breeding pieds, inchies. He was selecting inchies for mid-white pieds. He would never keep any of it. And he would have racks of just mid-white pied inchies. Obviously, they're going to be sporadic on what the mid-white is, but he would just have this rack of just mid-white inchy pieds. And then he'd have like racks of, and you even see it with like Justin's stock. I've noticed Justin's stock, even with a lot of stuff without inchies, he'll have a lot more tendencies for higher or lower white pieds in his collection and stuff like that. So I think a lot of this stuff was selectively bred because it was just keep back as much as you can, but they keep back the prettier stuff just to build on, because they were just trying to supply the pet trade at that point.
Sure, yeah.
So I think that's why they got that A and B, and why they're, because you do get some weird looks in Desert Ghosts. I've seen some animals that were clearly Desert Ghosts, but they look different. I've seen some that look axanthic that aren't axanthic. Should I have one in there?
Yeah, I know which ones you're talking about. Yeah, they look good. Yeah, there's like, that's the thing where it seems, and that's the thing that also helped this theory around it, is like, it seemed like there was kind of like 3 phenotypes, right. But the one phenotype was just kind of like a cleaner version of the same one. Right. You get those like really clean ones, and they have that kind of like bright lemony yellow kind of green hue to them, and then you have the ones in that hue, which is mild, is gone, and they're almost like white looking, and then you have those like real white and black ones.
Right.
I never heard of Pete line breeding pieds.
You never saw it? Go look at it. It's an actual video.
I'll go look, but I've always thought that pieds have such an inconsistency. I've bred pieds that are 90% white that make animals that are 10% white.
I can test it because I was at Pete's like about 15, 16 years ago, and he was keeping the more unusual ones to breed to each other. So I don't know how long he did that, but he was trying to breed certain pieds to each other.
What do you mean by unusual? The degree of white, or the overall look of the
certain ones. Like, let's say, well, I don't want to say there was ones that were really high white and had a lot of speckling, and he was going to breed those ones together.
Dave,
but those ones seem pretty erratic. I will agree, right. But the thing is, polygenics will influence those to a degree. How much they influence them? Yeah, can you selectively line breed pieds? Here's the thing, though, is like you're not selectively line breeding the mutant. You're selectively line breeding what's reacting with the mutant.
Yeah, what's reacting to it. Yep. No, but like I said, and it's not a stark. What is the actual percentage like of a pied that makes it mid, low, or high? Other than no white or all white. But I mean, either way, he had a consistent look. And it's not like all of it's uniformed either. It's just switches is what the piebald is. You know, it's from melanin and stuff. For pigmentation, I guess.
Sandblast. I argue that a majority of the pieds that came out of Pete's place were sandblasts. I think sandblast is actually all over the community. A lot of people don't realize it.
Should I get my
I
phone?
think that Osborne separated that gene out to do the urban camera, which is really cool. But with what you're saying about Pete holding back better pieds, Pete used to send me pictures of pieds all the time. He never called them sandblast. He was making sandblast forever. So I could see that is why maybe there's more sandblast in the industry because he held the nice ones back.
Dave, should I get my charger? Because I'm on 3%.
We can call it, guys. It's been like 4 hours. We can.
It's 4 hours. Real soon. This is the longest one. This is fun though.
Yeah, my earbuds. I can't even hear you guys anymore.
Really?
Oh, we're just babbling then.
Yeah, it's a good babble, guys. Every time we think it's over, it's like an hour of babbling.
Yeah.
See, we made a pretty good crew, right?
We did. Yeah. This is amazing. Yeah. Thanks for thanks for joining us, William. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave, for always helping talk and host. And see, Dave, you and both of you guys are really easy to talk to. So this was like a really fun one. This was very laid back. A lot of fun topics. Really good podcast. Yeah, and it definitely is good because we did 4 hours. I think this is by far my longest one. I think the longest before this was like 3 and 20 minutes.
Hey guys, told you guys a year ago we'd make a great team.
Best threesome in the industry, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, took it too far. My bad.
We can come up with like a really catchy, very unusual name like Snake King. We could be like the 3 snake tiers.
Man, you guys are better than this. I know it's late, but these names are shitty.
Oh God, not
Snake
creative
King.
right now. You're the one smoking. You should be more creative right now, Dave.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I said scale smuggler. You guys are like Snake King. Snakes
Scale
on a
smuggler.
plane.
That's
like,
not. Oh, come on. That
snakes. Snakes in your pants.
I need to be more creative. 2 fresh words.
The dynamic trio, but it has to do with snakes, Mom.
Yeah. I think William made 2 Samuel L. Jackson references in this.
Yeah,
podcast.
then he is I think it's gonna be. You think I think it's gonna be narrated by Samuel L. Jackson too.
that's why I had.
Yeah, and then he brought snakes on a plane.
Yeah. Snake-tacular trio.
Snake-tacular trio, Dave.
That's hot. I like that one. Yeah.
How about since we talk about snakes in your mouth?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, Dave had a positive reaction to that one.
That wasn't a positive.
Might be a new
it's funny. Idea. It's funny. I think it's okay.
I think it's great.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that a culture that eats snakes? Is that what you're implying?
No, we talk snakes.
Oh, okay.
We talk about snakes.
Well, we talk more than snakes, though. We talk geckos, lizards.
All right.
A word that can come out of our mouth for that one.
Yeah. All right. We talk about all kinds of stuff. Snakes.
Herps in our mouth.
Herps in your mouth.
Herps.
Ooh. Herps in your mouth and ear, because we're from mouth to ear. Herps from mouth to ear.
I don't hate it.
By the way, just throwing it out there, I think we should still do the hog underwear. I think that'd be a great idea. I'm on board with this.
I got some people that could make that one happen.
I think that'd be great. I'm totally down for that. Thong, underwear, Speedo, doesn't matter.
That's like the 3rd or 4th time in the last 5 minutes Will's taken us back to a gay conversation.
What's wrong with that, Dave? You were the one smoking out of the dildo.
I don't remember saying anything.
Ears, eyes, and mouth. You know
I didn't hear.
Leave your eyes.
Yeah.
Ears, if you can hear your eyes, ears, and mouth.
All right, so we got some ideas going. All right, we're right at 4 hours pretty much. We're 2 minutes and 25 seconds away. So
do you think there'll be another herps in our mouth episode?
Oh yeah, we'll do more herps in your mouth for sure.
Okay, I like that.
And that name too. I think that'd
Yeah.
be a good one.
That'll be the
That
title
one-
next time.
That one we can actually make a shirt out of.
Does
You guys
MJ
wanna
have to
push it
listen
4
to all
hours every
these?
time? Like, just see if we can do it. Think we got it in us?
I think
Every
so.
time?
Do you think MJ has to listen to this whole thing? There ain't no way he's gonna listen to this in 4 hours.
I'm afraid he's listening right now.
Okay.
No,
All right.
he would jump in at some point, right?
Yeah, sometimes, but MJ's always listening, guys. You have to understand that at this
Oh,
point.
he's Jesus, huh?
I know. I talk in code now with the other podcasters, so he doesn't know I'm talking about him in the back room.
Yeah. I'm sure it's probably still obvious.
Yeah, it's probably pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
All right.
should we do a wrap up?
That wrap up. Thanks, guys, for coming on. We got Dave and William. Give William a follow on Instagram because he's probably there. William, you on Insta?
Yeah. Yep. TJW Exotics.
TJW. Okay, you got TJW Exotics, Dave Custom Scales. That's it. I'm on 1%. I'm wrapping it up that fast. See ya, guys. And
Hey,
we're not
hey,
doing.
Junior.
Yeah.
Should we invite Dave Colombo on?
Yes, yeah, get Dave Palumbo. I'm just turning.
Let's do
We're
Dave
ending stream
Palumbo.
right now. I'm just clicking end stream. I gotta do it right now. I'm at 1%. I don't know what happens if my computer dies because maybe the stream keeps going.
Over. Give
All
it
right,
everybody.
bye. Thanks, William. Thanks, Dave. Later.
Yep. Thank you.
Later.